Villains are born from ambition and wicked desires, primal urges that destroy civilization and sow chaos in society. Dong Jin is a villain just like them. He has only one reason for his existence. The classroom buzzed with chatter as Dong Jin sat motionless listening to his classmates argue passionately about some old movie. The laughter and fragmented rebuttals were like demonic whispers in his ears as Dong Jin's eyelids fluttered open, revealing an emotionless gaze. In his mind, he mocked them as pathetic. In an instant, the classroom became a living hell, fueled by Dong Jin's terrifying thoughts. His entire body was stained crimson red and he uttered cold words with trembling lips. "You don't deserve salvation. You're just obstacles in my quest to find the one who controls time." With that, Dong Jin surveyed the scene, taking one last look at his handiwork. His classmates, who just moments ago were laughing and joking, now lay collapsed on the floor. Even the beautiful Jia Hyun met a gruesome end yet. From her cold corpse came a voice calling his name. That call unwittingly pulled him back to reality. The real Jia Hyun grimaced and called his name, but Dong Jin listlessly turned away. Enraged, she loudly voices her rising displeasure, then suddenly pivots with the bold assumption that Dong Jin is interested in her. Her nagging voice buzzed in his ear, stirring up layers of murderous intent within him, while Ji Hyun, oblivious to the danger, remained consumed by her anger. Just then, Sang Nam cheerfully ran in, calling out Dong Jin's name and breaking the awkward atmosphere. He greeted his friend with a bright, spring-like smile. Despite being ignored by his so-called best friend, Sang Nam chirped like a sparrow, while Dong Jin cursed under his breath in annoyance, and Jia Hyun finally snapped only to be ignored as well. "Why be friendly?" Sang Nam slapped in the face, scoffed, and then they began to tear at each other to defend their own views. The buzzing was getting to Dong Jin, so he listlessly snapped his fingers, twirling his index finger, as the argument beside him reached a fever pitch. The pens in front of Dong Jin suddenly stood up, as if pulled by an invisible force, but Nam, oblivious to the danger, continued to grin like a fool. After his confirmation, Dong Jin immediately turned the pen into a weapon, launching it at his opponent with such speed that it pierced right through his forehead. Even the guy next to him suffered the same fate. Having dealt with the noise, Dong Jin nonchalantly called the two loudspeakers idiots. As he finished speaking, two fresh corpses lay blocking the classroom aisle, and the remaining students were paralyzed with fear. Everyone was stunned, but their shock wouldn't last long, as even Dong Jin sensed the temporal loop closing in. He simply mused to himself, and allowed the loop to wash over him, time lumbering backward like a heavy cart. It spun back to the moment Dong Jin dusted off his hands, his task complete, then to the moment Hyun was struck. Just a bit further, and Sang Nam would meet his demise. Time rewinds to the moment the two pens were first erected. Finally, it loops back to the moment Dong Jin hears his name, called, his eyes glazed over, as if this scene is all too familiar. Dong Jin gritted his teeth, forced to listen to Sa Nam's tiresome lines again, and then, as expected, Ji Hyun approached, ready for an intense showdown. Not wanting to be provoked by the noise, Dong Jin leaves the classroom, shocking everyone, but the slamming door reveals his discontent. Sao Nam unfazed clenches, his fist determined to forge this friendship, but Ji Hyun's reminder that he's a nobody hits him hard. Unaware of the exchange, Dong Jin strolled down the empty hallway, powerful yet helpless. Because every time Dong Jin kills someone, someone rewinds time. Whoever they are, they're close. No matter who they are, he'll kill them all to escape this damned time loop. Dong Jin is determined to find them and end them. He was certain he would succeed. Dong Jin, burdened with countless doubts, slowly walked down the hallway. He had checked countless times, but the one manipulating time wasn't in his class, not even when Zhang Jin experimented in 9th grade. He decides to shift his search to the sophomores and freshmen, confident he'll find the culprit. After killing them one by one, Dong Jin found himself at the closed-off restroom, where a standard case of school bullying was taking place with Junju as the victim. After expressing his difficulty, he immediately receives a punch to the gut from Hunsu, who calmly discusses the remaining cigarettes with his friend, while Junju lies trembling on the floor. Despite his fear, he mustered the courage to refuse to spend money on them, and received a brutal knee to the face in return. His body slams against the wall as Hyunsu warns him one last time to bring 10 cigars. Junju nervously explains that he doesn't have that kind of money, and the bully stares back with dark eyes. Then, with a fake smile, Hunu uttered the devil's words. "Why don't you just die, you bastard?" And so curses and blows echoed throughout the cramped restroom, audible from the outside, yet no one intervened. Dong Jin found himself caught in the middle of this mess, and he wasn't happy about it. He lowered his eyes and pursed his lips, as if holding back the demon inside. But Dong Jin eventually sauntered over to Hyunsu's battle, prompting a wary glare from the annoyed fighter. As his opponent drew closer, Hyunsu growled, demanding he leave, but Dong Jin ignored him as if he were a buzzing fly. He'd never been ignored like that before, and it stung. Hunu decided to abandon his prey and switch to a new target. Fueled by rage, he grabbed Dong Jin's head and slammed it against the wall, but the man in his grasp seemed unfazed. Dong Jin silently digests the verbal abuse, then calmly turns around, a smirk on his face that makes Hyunsu frown. He decided to throw a punch and teach this arrogant punk a lesson, but Dong Jin isn't the kind of main character who'd let that happen. He cast a deathly glare at Hyunsu, then unleashed a devastating shove. Hyunsu slammed against the wall as his comrades looked on in shock while Dongjin remained in his attack stance. He coldly watched his opponent spit out soda before collapsing to the ground boneless. Hyunsu was knocked unconscious in an instant. While trying to help his comrade, Junju was terrified by Dongjin's power, and he could only stammer out a dry thank you. But he only smirked, turning his brutality toward Junju, who flinched and looked up in disbelief. But to Dongjin that reaction was still too slow. Crimson blood splattered the walls as he advanced like a vengeful demon. He was no longer arrogant, his features contorted with fear as he begged for mercy. But before Dongjin could finish him off, that familiar feeling of weightlessness returned. Though the terrifying smile remained on his face, even it was distorted by the power of time. In an instant, Dongjin was back at square one. As Hunsu's familiar curses rang in his ears, the all-too-familiar process began again. He approached from behind and yanked Dongjin's hair back. He remained as stoic as ever, but inwardly cursed this wretched time loop. Then, unexpectedly, Hyunsu released him. He notices the name tag on Dongjin's chest. Hyunsu can't help but wonder what class he's in, but Dongjin's indifference only fueled his rage, and he ultimately chose to unleash his fists. This time, Dongjin let his guard down and took a blow to the face, allowing Hyunsu to unleash his fury with another strike to the other side. Dongjin passively receives the relentless blows like a wooden puppet, seemingly fueling Hyunsu's adrenaline even further. He kept attacking until Dongjin staggered, barely managing to stay upright by grabbing onto the sink. Dongjin, head bowed, repeatedly told himself to stay calm in order to lure out the time manipulator. But just then, a disturbance in the air caught his eye, another man lunging forward, seeking revenge for his friend. With a single knee strike, he knocked Hunu out cold, and Saonam, filled with righteous fury, clenched his fist and declared war. Seeing their leader unconscious, the others panicked, but the star ignored them and rushed to his friend's side. Though Dongjin seems fine on the surface, he's anything but happy inside. Seeing the corner of his mouth turn up, Sam marvels as if witnessing the eighth wonder of the world. He was so scared that he kept checking Dongjin's body, and Dongjin, not wanting to be a bother, reassured Saonam that he was fine and wanted to go home early. It was like a spotlight shining directly on him, and Sam excitedly carried Dongjin away on his back. For a moment, he thought he should be grateful to the guy, but Dongjin immediately reminded himself not to back down because he was a villain. Alone in her room, she lifts a small weight and approaches the door, asking who's there. Dongjin's voice echoed from outside. "I'm here to tell you that you're being too loud." Confused, she replies, "I don't think I'm that bad." She rushes to the door and gently explains, "Wait, look, I don't even do any heavy workouts." She opens the door, greeting him politely. "Hello." But Dongjin stood outside his body, glowing, his eyes wide and terrifying as he silently declared, "Everyone I've killed has been a resident of this building. Some middle school classmates and friends were useless too. I conducted a few experiments on the time loop. First, he would trigger the continuous time loop." Dongjin sat in the classroom, staring intently at his phone, calculating in his mind. First, he tests the time reversal, glancing at Sangnam, who is focused on writing below the test subject. Suddenly, a bullet came flying from afar with incredible speed. The experiment begins, and the bullet pierces through Sangnam's head without hesitation. As he slumped onto the desk, Dongjin immediately raised his watch and started the timer. Time of death, 34130 p.m. He then focused on calculating and analyzing the data. Return time, 154025 seconds, about a minute prior. "Let's confirm." Dongjin snaps his fingers, and Sangnam immediately wakes up. Confirming again, he then collapses onto the table, unconscious once more in an instant. Dongjin glanced at his phone and carefully calculated the time. The return time was 338 p.m., about 2 minutes this time. This made him wonder if he kept activating the time loop, would time rewind endlessly. He glanced at Dong-in, preparing for his next experiment with Dong-in as the subject. The experiment begins, and Dong-in suddenly collapses onto the table, shocking his friends. Suddenly, Dongjin's body froze, feeling heavier than usual. Despite his labored breathing, he focused on the data, successfully completing 5 consecutive time loops, rewinding time by about 8 minutes. Suddenly, bright red droplets of blood began to fall onto the table, and Dongjin looked utterly bewildered by the streak of blood still on his nose. Startled, Blood 5 immediately jumped up, shouting, "Dongjin, you're bleeding." His brow furrowed, his face etched with worry and tension. Dongjin quickly signaled for him to fall to the floor, cursing under his breath, "Annoying bastard. The experiment can rewind time indefinitely, but I'll likely be seriously injured. I've succeeded 5 times in a row. The second experiment is to free myself." Dongjin's body floats in the air, his mind heavy with worry. If he kills, time will reverse. What if I just disappeared? He closed his eyes, lost in thought. What would those guys think if they saw this? He raised his hand and a cold blue light enveloped it. Dongjin's eyes widened with grave intensity. If time hadn't reversed, he would have unhesitatingly plunged his hand into his own chest. Wouldn't that be a pointless death? Dongjin's immense power reverberates through the space. A dog immediately darted off with hurried steps, as Sangnam, bewildered, asked, "Hey guard dog, where are you going?" Before him lay Dongjin's body, paralyzed and motionless on the ground, leaving Sangnam stunned and struggling to comprehend what had happened. Seeing Dongjin lying motionless and covered in wounds, he cried out in alarm. "Dongjin, Dongjin's eyes flutter open his consciousness, returning from the depths of his coma as he stares in bewildered confusion. Sangnam carries him on his back, urging him onward. Dongjin, we're almost at the hospital, just hang on a little longer. I can't control my power. Am I afraid of death? He suddenly declared. Stopping, Saonam gently asks, Okay Dongjin, are you alright? He sets Dongjin down and earnestly advises, Go to the hospital, you're badly injured. But Dongjin just glared and said fiercely, Get out of my way. He then immediately rushed into the street without hesitation and stood directly in front of the speeding truck. Dongdi's eyes narrowed, her gaze resolute and unwavering, leaving Saonam stunned and wide-eyed. The truck slammed into Dongjin, sending him flying and splattering blood everywhere, triggering the time loop once more. That bastard won't even let me die. Strangely, Saonam immediately carried him on his back and frantically ran off, looking tense and worried. Let's get you to the infirmary first. I'm on my way. Hold on tight. Dongjin couldn't help but wonder, why is he being so kind? Saonam rushed off his footsteps, urgent, not wanting to waste a single second, his face growing increasingly anxious and fearful. Get out of the way. He was rushing when he suddenly saw Hun Cheon's gang bullying Min Ho Ho, who was kneeling in the street. Though wearing a horse's head, Min Ho Ho couldn't hide the shock on his face as Saonam rushed past, inadvertently bumping into Min Hoang and sending him flying. Min Ho Ho lost his balance and collapsed to the floor, lying motionless as if all life had left him. In the silent school hallway, the air is thick with tension, as Miho is surrounded and bullied by a group of thugs forced to neigh like a horse. Hai Ununxian took out his phone, snapping a picture and laughing with glee. Look at this idiot. Minho's face, photoshopped with a horse's head, appeared on the phone screen with Minji and Minhoon posing ridiculously behind him. Minho couldn't take it anymore and cried out. Ignoring Minho's struggle on the floor, one of the bullies mocks him. I told you it's easier to put this on. He immediately threw the horse head at Minho's face and continued to mock him. Right, doesn't it look good? Just then, two sophomores walked by, and Hunqian, seeing them, ordered Minho as if he were an animal. There are freshmen, greet them. Minho could only resign himself to obeying the man's wishes. Hey, can I have your leftover carrots? Suddenly, hurried footsteps echoed from down the hall, and Sangnam frantically shouted for everyone to get out of the way. He then rushed past, inadvertently bumping into Minho, sending him staggering sideways, losing his balance and collapsing motionless onto the floor. The bully smirks with satisfaction. Hey, are you dead? Meanwhile, Hunqian was utterly bewildered. What the hell? He stared intently in Sangnam's direction, wondering. Those first years. With a grave expression, Hai Unun Shu spoke urgently. Hai Unun Qian turned back, asking, What's wrong? Hun Shu furrowed his brow, his voice filled with anger. Be careful of the ones who just ran past. Those bastards beat me up and ran away, Qian Hai said. They said they were going to the infirmary. Hai Unxian approached, glaring and scolding them. Idiot, are you just going to let them beat you up on your first day? Who were they? Hunu's face suddenly grew tense and grave. I only know the guy in the back is Kim Dong-jin, but I don't know what class he's in. He looked up, offering a cautious warning that fat kid can fight. Hey, be careful. Hai Ununxian stood up straight, put his hands in his pockets and spoke with an arrogant air. Do you think I need to be told that by a loser when I'm one of the strongest in the school? Meanwhile, Min Ho Ho, lying motionless on the floor, heard everything and couldn't help but worry. Those guys are in trouble. Hunqian glared at him and spoke in a low voice. Hey dog, as Min Ho Ho rose, Hunqian commanded, Bring them here in 5 seconds. Hurry. Minho slowly dragged the horse's head up, looking exhausted. Seeing his hesitation, Hunqian began to count his voice, a menacing threat to the 4 standing guard. Minho gets up and awkwardly runs off, left with no other choice. He says he understands. Meanwhile, Sangnam quickly carried Dongjin to the school's medical room, where he collapsed on the floor, his voice weak. Dongjin took care of him, and coldly turned away before entering the room. He told me to put him down already. As he walks forward, he suddenly glances back. He stared intently at the infirmary, wondering if he'd ever killed a nurse before. Then Dongjin quietly approached and reached for the doorknob. Meanwhile, Sangnam was lost in a dream, drool spilling onto the floor as Minho rushed to his side. His eyes dart around in confusion as he wonders how he ended up here. Minho pats Sangnam's shoulder, urgently trying to wake him. Hey, wake up! He suddenly glanced away, lost in thought and hesitation. What should I do? Where did that guy go? Suddenly, an immense pressure emanates from the infirmary, and Minho's eyes widen in shock and horror. He cautiously peeked into the room, his voice trembling with fear. Her eyes went wide, her face frozen as she witnessed the scene before her. Dongjin's bloodied hand radiating a light that engulfed the room. His eyes widened in terror, his body frozen in that horrifying moment, consumed by a haunting dread, his heart pounding with fear. Though Hunqian's menacing countdown echoed in his mind, Minho fled in a panic. 5, 4, 3. I understand. He ran each step, faltering, his body strained. Then Minho froze as if sensing something. An immense pressure suddenly emanates from behind him, threatening to burst his heart, and Minho's eyes widen with a blank stare. This feeling. His hands trembled uncontrollably, almost numb like déjà vu. At that moment, an image of a blood-soaked corpse flashed through his mind, accompanied by ragged, exhausted breaths. Its pale face and the blood at the corner of its mouth, an indelible nightmare etched into his memory. Minho's eyes darken, his gaze filled with terror. Why can't I? Suddenly a hand lashed out from behind, striking him in the face. Huncheon, seeing Minho clutch his face, roared, "Hey kid!" Minho's weak voice echoed in agonizing pain. "It hurts so much." Huncheon grimaces. "Did you see a ghost? Why are you spacing out?" Mienhyun angrily grabs his sleeve, snapping, "Don't say that she'll bring up the past. Don't you remember she stood before a corpse?" Huncheon dismissively asks with a mocking tone, "When was that?" "When you were riding her." Myeonhyun coldly turned away, his face full of anger. "I don't care if I'm a bother, I'm just reporting this." Huncheon once again ordered Minho to bring them to him after lunch. He glared at him and cursed, "Hey dog, why aren't you answering?" Minho's eyes were wide with shock, as if still reeling from the terror. "Yes sir." Hyuncheon and his gang immediately turned and left, and it seemed like Minho was finally free. Suddenly a fake horse head flies from out of nowhere, striking Minho in the face as Hyunu speeds past, smirking with pride. "Fat Bao Thang is as good as dead," he declared with smug satisfaction. "I'll fight him to the death." Chan Hai chimed in. "That kid." Minho fell into a pensive silence. His eyes widened in disbelief and shock. It couldn't be. The memory of what happened earlier threw him into a chaotic frenzy of thoughts. This is really happening. Mienho affirmed to himself, convinced that something similar was happening. Dongjin stared intently at his planner, crossing off the names of those who had completed their research, then quickly closed the book. Dongjin's eyes droop as he contemplates returning to DAE. World once more, then leaps decisively into the air. In the blink of an eye, Dongjin was at DAE World's schoolyard, where teachers and students were diligently focused on their lessons. Students were diligently focused on their work, the quiet broken only by the scratching of pens on paper, when Dongjin suddenly burst into the classroom, his eyes fixed on the notebook in his hand. The teacher, confused, asked, "Who are you?" Then he angrily shouted, "Which class president are you?" Dongjin cast a chilling, menacing glare at the teacher, prompting a student to leap to his feet in astonishment. "Kim Dongjin, what are you doing here?" Another student turns, equally bewildered. Dongjin closed his eyes, silent and still. He suddenly grinned, a chilling smile that filled the class with unease. "Hello." Dongjin maintained his eerie smile, as an immense pressure suddenly erupted, engulfing the space, and a blinding light enveloped his body, revealing eyes wide with terrifying shock. Suddenly, a pen on the desk flies into the air, stunning a female student, and then all the school supplies float in midair, shocking the entire class. The school supplies gradually converged, flying directly toward Dongjin as the students watched in stunned silence. "Impossible." "What is he?" the teacher scowled. "What are you doing, you little brat?" Dongjin ignored him, speaking sternly like giving an order. "Come out here." His eyes widened, his gaze locked onto the empty space filled with murderous intent. The Time Ruler's aura intensified, radiating overwhelming power that filled the room with tension. The teacher rushed over, pointing at Dongjin and shouting, "What nonsense are you spouting? Get out of my class!" Dongjin's eyes flashed, and he cursed through gritted teeth with a serious expression. "You useless piece of trash." The teacher's eyebrows furrowed as he roared with fury. "What did you say, you little brat?" No sooner were the words out of his mouth than a barrage of pens came flying toward him. His eyes widened in terror as the sharp tips approached. The pens pierced his face, leaving gaping holes, splattering blood everywhere, creating a horrifying scene as the teacher staggered, losing all strength. He immediately collapsed to the floor, and the students scattered in terror. Dongjin's face was smeared with red blood, his eyes wide with murderous intent as he spoke, "Die." The hallway remained quiet, as always, but inside the classroom, a suffocating nightmare was unfolding, the sound of splattering blood echoing relentlessly. The glass doors were instantly stained crimson, and the metallic scent of blood filled the room as Minho remained paralyzed by fear. "I can't shake this feeling. I can't even swallow my food." His eyes fell on the untouched tray of food as Hai Ununcheon approached, sneering. "What's wrong? Is the food not to your liking?" "Ah, you must be lonely." He smirks with feigned concern. "Want to eat with us tomorrow?" He put his arm around. Minho leaned in close and asked, "What do you think?" Minho squeezed his eyes shut, forcing a strained smile. "Is that okay?" Hyuncheon grabbed his hair and slammed his face into the food tray, asking, "What about that thing?" Minho weakly replied, "Oh, I told that freshman the other one was injured and went home early." Hai Uncheon quickly lifted his head and growled, "I don't need the other one." He then ordered them to bring the big guy to him, as Minho weakly responded, "I see." Huncheon's ferocity silenced the surrounding students, who lowered their heads, afraid to even glance at him. Huncheon placed a hand on Minho's shoulder, asking curiously, "Hey Minho, did you see a ghost or something?" Minho denied it, but Huncheon continued to press him. "Then why are you standing in front of the corpse of the guy who supposedly ran off? Just a little pathetic." Huncheon then turned to the boys next to him. "Hey, sixth grader." He glared, sneering mockingly. "This dog says he's lonely. Isn't it because he killed that guy? Why are you acting like that? Are you all feeling humiliated?" The students could only cower in silence as Hyuncheon brushed past Minho, sneering. "Just cower, eat up, you bastard. Let's go." He hastily ordered his lackeys to gather. The henchman responded, "Yes, sir. What about me?" Huncheon coldly tells him to stay away, but the underling continues to beg. What about me, boss? Let me join in. Minho then silently walked across the schoolyard looking lost and soulless, each step heavy, as if carrying an invisible burden. His eyes darkened, reflecting the fear and emptiness within. Minho hesitated, stopping in his tracks. He glanced to the side, his eyes wide with confusion, and saw a bird lying motionless on the grass. His eyes widened in terror, as Minho stared intently at the bird lying motionless on the ground. Now the bloody corpse of a male student flashes through his mind, and he recalls the scenes from before. He just wanted to save the dying boy. Minho rushed to help, but was left utterly helpless. But no matter how many times I save him, Minho realizes in horror that touching the boy's body sends him back to the moment of his death. He bitterly blames himself, wondering why he has such a useless power. Tears stream down his face, reflecting the pain piling up in his soul. I don't need this power anymore. Minho gently placed the bird in his hand. Suddenly, an intense red light bursts from the bird's body. The moment Minho lifts it, a blinding red light erupts around him, accompanied by the piercing crackle of lightning. Minho stares intently, his face strained with focus, before finally exhaling in relief, as the bird's eyes flutter open, its body trembling and beginning to move. It then spread its wings wide, its face beaming with newfound life, as Minho asked tenderly, "Are you okay?" And so the bird in his hand spread its wings and soared into the vast sky as Minho watched silently. The bird that lay motionless on the grass now soars through the blue sky, and Minho is suddenly reminded of the student who jumped from the rooftop. Like that bird, I wish I could have saved him. His eyes fell, his gaze filled with unspoken sorrow. Just then, Sangnam appeared behind him, calling out Senior Minho. Minho turns, his face etched with worry. "How long have you been here? Did you see it?" Sangnam asks innocently. What are you talking about?" Minho brushed it off, saying, "No, it's nothing." Sangnam nonchalantly speaks, "Let's go." In a secluded corner of the schoolyard where few dare to tread, the Huncheon gang awaits. The air is so still you can hear the wind rustling through the leaves. Hyunchan, puffing on a cigarette, suddenly narrows his eyes and glances back. Seeing Minho lead Sangnam over, he exhaled a cloud of white smoke in provocation. Hyunchan quickly pinched the cigarette between his fingers, tilting his wrist as if preparing to flick it forward. The cigarette was launched, and Sangnam barely dodged it, his face filled with panic. Hyunchan closed in, delivering a powerful kick to his leg. Sangnam collapses to the ground, his face contorted in pain as he screams. Hyunchan doesn't stop there, immediately slapping him across the face. His eyes widened with vicious glee, a smirk of arrogant satisfaction playing on his lips as Mienho could only watch Sangnam being mercilessly beaten. His eyes squeezed shut, weighed down by guilt and remorse, as Hyunchan unleashed a torrent of abuse. "Damn, you reek of sweat." He stood up straight, put his hands in his pockets, and asked with a haughty look, "Hey nah, Sangnam, you're a good fighter, right? Do you know who hurt your brother?" He immediately questioned, "Why did you beat up Huncheon?" Sangnam replied hesitantly, "He's just a close friend who got hurt." Huncheon approached, a smirk on his face, and asked, "What's going on between you two? A date, is it?" Despite being beaten and bloodied, Sang's face remained steadfast and unwavering. "Do I need a reason to protect my friend?" His voice suddenly became resolute. "He's my benefactor," Hyuncheon said mockingly, his face contorted. "Hey idiot, are you acting in a movie or something?" Then he turned and left, saying angrily, "Go on and date each other, you idiots." Sangnam reiterated with unwavering resolve, "I'm not kidding, I'll protect him until my dying breath." Hyuncheon spun around, his brow furrowed in displeasure. "What a stupid idiot. You think he'll be grateful?" Despite this, Sangnam firmly declared, "Yes, I'm sure of it." Hai Ununcheon suddenly scoffed. "Really?" He turned and ordered his men to teach that bastard a lesson tomorrow. His henchmen eagerly agreed, "Consider it done." Hun Cheon spoke with utter brutality. "After you teach him a lesson, drag him around and get some of the top dogs ready." The henchman's face lights up with excitement. "Leave it to me." The lackey asked, "I can do whatever I want with him, right?" Hun Cheon responded clearly, "Yeah." Hearing this, Sangnam gritted his teeth, his body trembling with rage. Dongjin was in danger. He stood up, his figure imposing. His tone was firm as he spoke Sunbae. Hyuncheon turned, his face wary, as Sangnam's eyes darkened, his gaze so intense it seemed to freeze the very air. "And there's a mole on his cheek." "What is it?" Huncheon scowled. Sangnam, unable to hold back any longer, spoke, "Excuse me for a moment." He immediately threw a fierce punch, landing it squarely on Hyuncheon's face, leaving him dazed, foaming at the mouth and trembling uncontrollably. The punch sent Hyuncheon staggering and he collapsed to the ground in a heap. Seeing Hyuncheon unconscious with blood on his nose, his friends were shocked. "Hyuncheon, hey, are you okay?" Sang then bowed politely, saying, "Please don't bother us anymore." Meanwhile, Mienho watched from afar, stunned by Sangnam's actions, as Hanjin scowled and shouted, "Damn it, you're dead if you breathe a word of this." Mienho quickly raised both hands, looking terrified. "Okay, my lips are sealed." Hanjin snapped back, "Get lost." Minho reluctantly left as he was told, while Hyunu, lurking behind the wall, smirked with satisfaction, seemingly impressed by the single blow. A sinister look washes over his face. He could take down a level 53 player. Meanwhile, Minho Ho was running away, his eyes filled with tension and panic, rushing forward without paying attention to his surroundings. Unbeknownst to Minho, he brushes past Dongjin, his face etched with worry and a complete lack of awareness. Dongjin, holding his planner, contemplates, "I've killed all my classmates now, it's the sophomore's turn." Thus, Dongjin and Minho drift apart, foreshadowing a tense future encounter. In class, EG assigns her students a task like before. They must draw a self-portrait of their inner selves. She gently reminded them to turn it in when they were done. Miho sketched an image of herself with plants and animals representing life on one side and a skull representing death on the other. Suddenly, footsteps echoed through the school hallway, growing louder and more rhythmic. Dongjin suddenly appears before the classroom, a shadowy figure in the dim light. Without hesitation, he throws open the door while Minho focuses on coloring his drawing. Suddenly, a strange noise from outside stops his hand mid-stroke, and as Dongjin enters, every pen in the room floats into the air. The students stared in wide-eyed shock as IG surveyed the class, praising Minho's painting, noting the impressive left-right division. She pointed to the skull and asked curiously, "Is this the darkness in your heart?" Minho chuckled and awkwardly explained, "I'm just expressing my fear of death." With a bright smile, she replies, "So it's an expression of death in your life, a rather unique way of showing it." She gently places her hand on Minho's shoulder and asks with concern, "Minho, animals play an important role in your life, don't they?" Minho's tone was hesitant. "Yes, that's right." Outside in the hallway, everything was as quiet and still as ever. Dongjin stood before another second-year classroom, his anger hardening into a tension that seemed to choke the air itself. Then calmly he moved on to the next. Minho's face suddenly darkens, his eyes wide with shock and confusion, as if sensing an invisible pressure bearing down on him. His eyes glaze over and his body trembles with fear of something unseen. He rushed over, placed a hand on Minho's back and asked, "What's wrong?" Minho's face turned pale with terror. That feeling was approaching again. As Dongjin pushed open the door, the classroom air instantly became tense and stifling. Minho glanced at him, utterly bewildered. Dongjin strode into the room, his eyes gleaming, surrounded by a blinding light as the class stared in bewildered confusion. As Dongjin casually entered the classroom, Y wondered aloud, "Who's that?" Minho didn't dare turn, only glancing at Dongjin's cold, stern expression as if he didn't care about anything around him. A student is diligently drawing, when she suddenly looks up and asks, "Who is it?" Unexpectedly, her drawing is torn from the sketchbook. Her eyes widened in disbelief as her drawing floated in the air, then instantly sliced across the student's face. Her face filled with shock and horror as she touched the blood trickling down her cheek. Dongjin raised his hand and the paper instantly flew back into his palm. Minho was stunned, her mouth agape psychic powers. The students gathered around Dongjin, buzzing with excitement. "Hey freshman, what do you think you're doing? That's magic." He quickly raised his hand, warning, "Back to your seats, stop fooling around and get back to class." Minho, terrified, raised his hand to stop her. "Miss, don't come any closer." Y asked, puzzled. Why? The paper instantly shot like an arrow, slicing Y's neck and spraying blood everywhere, even onto Minho's face. His eyes widened in disbelief, his face a mask of terror, as he watched Y collapse to the floor, sending the entire class into a panicked frenzy. "Who is this monster? Run!" Dongjin slowly walked through the bodies strewn across the floor, as the students fleeing at the door trembled in fear. "The door won't open, he's getting closer." He lies motionless on the floor, barely able to speak. After those words, her eyes closed, her last breath escaping as she passed away forever. Minho gritted his teeth in frustration, tears welling up in his eyes. Helpless, he stares at his hands, wondering how he can possibly save her. "No, if I do nothing, I'll lose my chance." Meanwhile, the other students are using chairs to resist and block Dongjin's path. Don't go near him." Everyone's faces were filled with anxiety and fear. What's happening to him? But he does nothing, simply passing by the students. Minho Ho is before him, hands on Y's body, radiating a brilliant light that intensifies, filling his eyes with shock and confusion. "What is this?" Y slowly opens her eyes as if resurrected from the dead. Minho's face lights up with a bright smile. "Miss." Y clutches her head as if she's been through hell, while Minho's eyes widen in disbelief as he sees the floor turning to stone. Dongjin instantly appeared, a large rock in his hand, his eyes wide with terrifying rage, his face darkening as he uttered a menacing threat. "Die, you ability user." Then he hurled the sharp rock towards Minho at an astonishing speed. Minho's mouth hung open in disbelief. As the boulder hurtled closer, his eyes fixed on the approaching stone, helpless to dodge or resist a shard of glass thrown into the mix. Then Cizo spat on Minho's face, and people began to fall, one after another. He was terrified, only able to stammer. Someone walks through the corpses, approaching. A person with powers like Minho's, tears of fear welling in their eyes. But why do they glance at Y, lying prone on the ground? Why did he do it? Minho's tears begin to fall. Helpless, he raised his hands, wondering how he could save her. Minho buried his face in his hands, knowing they were doomed to die and he would suffer as he had before. In a moment, he regained his composure and thought seriously. But no, if he did nothing, there would be no chance at all. Minho reverses time before it's too late now in the process of healing Y. A light flares around Minho as he transfers his energy to her. Finally, Y opens her eyes, and he cries out in joy, "Auntie." She sits up still dizzy, clutching her head. A reunion fleeting as it is, but Minho's eyes darken knowing she'll soon be attacked. Can I still stop him? Even if I help them, what will happen next? Suddenly footsteps made him turn his head, and Minho glanced upwards. Dongjin stood before him stone in hand, as Minho stared in stunned silence. No, it's not time for that time loop yet. His eyes flashed, "Die time ruler." Then the sharp stone flew from Dongjin's hand, heading straight for the dazed Minho Ho. Just as the stone neared Minho Ho's face, a temporal distortion occurred, blurring everything, and freezing Dongjin and the stone in place. His eyes remained fixed on the sharp point, but it wasn't long before Minho Ho realized the problem. Curious, he reaches out to touch the tip of the stone. What is this? Minho then glanced around the classroom, noticing that the bully who had been leaving was now frozen in place. Dongjin's ferocious face remained the fearful eyes of everyone frozen in place. He stood up in surprise. Time had stopped. Minho was still bewildered. He hadn't even used the time loop yet. He looked down at the sharp stone and noticed the numbers had shifted slightly. It hadn't stopped. It was then he realized he was just slower. But another question lingered in Minho's mind. Why only him? Suddenly, an aftershock throws him off balance, and a strange crack appears before Minho. What is this? It's like a painting on glass beginning to shatter. And then he shared the same fate as everyone else, unable to move. Suddenly, everything shattered like glass, the pieces falling like tears. Unexpectedly, Y's voice rang out. "Everyone back to your seats and wake up the others." And there was Minho asleep at his desk as chalk rained down upon his head. Someone shouted at him to wake up from his daze. He suddenly jolted awake, his face filled with terror, but to his surprise, the classroom was peaceful, as if nothing had happened. The class erupts in whispers. "What's wrong with that loser? He looks like he's seen a ghost. What a joke." Suddenly, Y shouted, "Silence, everyone." Minho breathes a sigh of relief, as if a weight has been lifted. Thank goodness time has turned back. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Minho looked back at the clock, but why had it gone back so far? Did he return to the moment before his death because of his unease? Minho's eyes remained glued to the clock. Was it because of that strange incident? How could this be happening? Meanwhile, heavy breathing echoed down the hallway as someone gasped for air. Dongjin leaned against the wall, exhausted, his face contorted in a grimace. What was this? I feel like crap. Dongjin punches the wall. I haven't killed anyone yet. But why? His mind is flooded with unanswered questions. Something is very wrong. This is no simple loop anymore. E is at the front of the class giving an assignment. Continuing from our last lesson, I want you all to paint a self-portrait of a secret you hold. Perhaps Minho was the only one in the class who ignored her words. Those who finish can submit it to her. His eyes darted back and forth with worry. He'll be here soon. What should I do? Minho's hands trembled as he clenched them tightly, knowing that if he did nothing, everyone would die again. He closed his eyes, resolving to find a way to stop him. Outside, Dongjin slowly made his way up the stairs, hands in his pockets, back to the classroom, when Minho suddenly raised his hand, his voice drawing everyone's attention. Excuse me, he asked Han politely. What is it? Minho says. Put your hand down and say you have a stomachache. She then joked that it was because I dozed off during break time. Let's go quickly. Meanwhile, Dongjin, his face contorted with rage and surrounded by a dark aura, took his final steps. Meanwhile, Minho cautiously peeked out the door, scanned his surroundings, and then bolted. He's not here yet, thank goodness. But the familiar hallway now seems endless. He hides behind a door, his eyes fixed on the end of the hallway. After a moment of silence, Minho closes his eyes and exhales a long breath, but to be sure he glances back again. The hallway remained eerily silent, and Minho pondered if that freshman possessed a similar ability to his own. He recalled Dongjin's face from his dream. Was he the source of everything he was feeling? Suddenly, he emerged from the end of the hallway, startling Minho, whose eyes widened in fear. He pressed himself against the door, waiting for Dongjin. Minho prayed, "Here he comes, please don't come this way." He peeked out only to see Dongjin stop at another classroom door. Minho was filled with questions. Class 1. Wasn't he coming to my class? He couldn't stop wondering, how could this be happening? Why is he going in there? Minho's eyes widened in shock. Was he sure he sensed that this guy would be in his class? He stared at the unusually calm figure. No way did he go back in time to kill all the students in Class 1, but why? The classroom door in front of Dongjin suddenly bursts open and he slowly walks in as Minho watches. And then the classroom door slowly closed and he immediately bolted out like an arrow. Right now, Minho heads straight for the end of the hall with no time to spare, his fear growing with each step. This was the only way to save everyone. Minho rushed to the school's fire alarm and decisively pressed it. The alarm blares as cheers erupt throughout the school. Elsewhere, Dongjin enters the classroom, drawing everyone's attention, and the fire alarm shatters the tense atmosphere. His brow furrowed, glancing back, unsure of what was happening as hurried footsteps echoed down the stairs. The teacher bringing up the rear anxiously reminded the students, "Slow down, take the stairs carefully, everyone." As they hurried out, they couldn't help but gossip. Was there really a fire? I don't know, probably just a prank. At the same time, someone from Class 2 whispered, "What was up with that freshman? Maybe he set off the alarm and ran, ending up in the wrong class. If that's the case, he's awfully confident." Dongjin listens with a sour look on his face. If that's the case, he's awfully confident. He said nothing, standing silently as Minho stole a glance. Thankfully, he wouldn't do anything else for now. Minho clicked his tongue at Dongjin's blank expression. What a childish act. But curiosity still gnawed at him. Why would he kill someone else? He was so busy watching him and reasoning someone was trying to stop him. Minho's eyes remained fixed, certain that he had done something to the loop. Even as Dongjin left, he watched, knowing there would be other opportunities. Minho watched him leave, determined to find his hiding place, then turned and walked in the opposite direction. Until next time, ability user. The next day, smoke filled the balcony. Hyun Cheon sat smoking on the steps, taking a long drag before asking I passed out. The others chimed in. Yeah, don't you remember? Hyun Cheon gritted his teeth, biting down on his cigarette as he cursed. Damn, a fearless blue-haired kid is laughing and joking. I heard you only took one hit and passed out. What an interesting little guy. Is he really a freshman? He immediately dropped his cigarette and warned, having fun. Then Hyun Cheon didn't hesitate to slam the guy's head into the door. What I want to say is he turned back with a fierce look and ordered, drag him here next year, nah. Meanwhile, inside the classroom, Jia Hyun frowned and scolded. What's wrong with you? Just do what you want to do, but think about your friends too. She heads straight for Sang-nam, who slumped over. The teacher's gonna nag him again. He covered his face in helplessness, saying he didn't mean for it to happen. I lost control before I knew it. Then Ra-hoon sighed. All this, as class president. Feeling ignored, she raises her hand to strike. Didn't you hear what I said? Suddenly Ji-hyun was grabbed. Sang-nam gets up, gets close to her face and says, let's talk, before dragging Da-hyun away. This crazy guy. Let me go. Everyone's staring. Are they dating? I'll bet 500 on it. Carefree Ji-hyun pops open a soda. Why would you do something you'll regret? Then she brought it to her lips and drank. How foolish. He'll come after you again. But Sang-nam casually replies, is that so? Ji-hyun chided. Isn't it obvious? Did you even think before you hit him? She recalls, unable to believe he'd hurt someone. A small boy suddenly became a giant as Hyun questioned him, clearly annoyed. Why do you keep teasing me? Meanwhile, he wore an innocent expression, asking why me. Nam frowned. I'm more worried about Dongjin. She glanced at the empty can. Stop clinging to him. Jia-hyu then threw it in the trash, saying he should pray for him if he's worried, or just pick a fight. With the conversation over, she leaves, saying, it's up to you. I don't want to get involved. You should make arrangements quickly. Sang seems reluctant, but he's a good guy. His words were so sincere that Hyun had to turn and look back. Without him, he wouldn't be in this world. The two sat down to talk, and Sang-nam spoke first. Do you remember Sim's hospital? Ji-hyun glances back at the supposedly haunted hospital, and immediately agrees. That's right, back in elementary school, Sang-nam came here with some friends, betting they could take a picture inside as proof. The boy with glasses was scared. I can't do it. But the black-haired kid didn't agree. I took a week off to come here instead of going to that internet cafe. We all went inside, but we only took a few steps when a boy's voice rang out. Wait, the black-haired kid's getting scared, so can we just take the pictures here? The kid with glasses immediately agrees. Too scared to continue, they decide to take the photos on the ground floor, but a sudden loud noise startles them. Sang-nam lowered his camera and looked toward the noise, his eyes widening and his face freezing in terror. The two boys turned back curious. What is that? A dark figure with glowing eyes appeared in the doorway, drawing closer with a chilling hiss. While Sang-nam froze, the other two boys gaped in terror and the three of them fled together. A ghost. Jia-hyun hesitated after hearing the story, so she asked curiously, what does that have to do with Kim Dong-jae? Sang-nam's voice lowered. Listen, when he got home, he discovered his camera was missing. Sang-nam's mother would be furious, so he returned to the hospital. That's when Sang-nam noticed a suspicious red liquid on the floor. This girl. He stared intently. Was it syrup? Instead of cameras, Sang-nam only found Zero, and the entire second-floor hallway was covered in him. He stepped onto the stairs, glancing back with a glimmer of hope, but it wasn't Zero. That's right. Upon going up there, Sang-nam found a path leading to the director's office. Just then, a voice echoed from behind him. Is this yours? Sang-nam turns to see Dongjin holding the camera, but his clothes are covered in Zero's grime. Dongjin hands it to Sang-nam, who quickly takes it. Thanks. Then he just turned and walked away, telling me not to come back. And that was Sang-nam's first encounter with Dongjin, a revelation that made Jia-hyun frown. I feel terrible. What was he doing there? He scratched his ear, thinking for a moment, but Sang-nam had no answer. I don't know either. Her expression turned sour. What is it? Is that hospital still there? He replied, dejected. Probably. Anyway, I went there again a few days later. Suddenly, someone called out, Hey, na, Sang-nam. Suddenly, a pair of hands appeared before him, striking Sang-nam to the ground in front of Jia-hyun, who screamed in terror. The voice sent shivers down Hye-hyun's spine. Come with me, you bastard. Elsewhere, the book floats in space, its pages turning wildly. It turns out Dongjin's eyes were controlling the strange book. Alone on the rooftop, he pondered, I don't think it's the time ruler. Suddenly, the book is stretched and torn to shreds, leaving Dongjin with an icy expression. He watched the falling scraps, his heart heavy with the time loop he couldn't even remember. And when the fire alarm rang, Dongjin's eyes widened. Is this just a coincidence? Scattered fragments lay at his feet. This loop was too suspicious to be mere coincidence. A noise at the door caught Dongjin's attention, and a group appeared carrying Sang-nam. Without mercy, they shoved him to the floor as one of them made a call. Hyunhan, he's on the roof. Oblivious to the eyes watching him, he continued his phone call. Okay. Another one raises his foot and brutally kicks Sang-nam. Get up and play with us. Ha Jin-air threatens him with a fist, telling him to bring him along as Jae-ho smirks. Don't get hurt, you hear. At that moment, he bowed his head low. I'm sorry I didn't want to fight you, senior. He smirks, issuing his challenge. No problem, you bastard. Come at me. Hae-jin reaches for a punch, but it falls short. That's a high chin. Then he goes for a kick. How about this? But Sang-nam simply leaned back easily, dodging the blow. The other two watched Hae-jin's antics and burst out laughing while his embarrassed opponent snapped. You see this, you bastard? You said you didn't want to fight, but why are you dodging? Suddenly, a large hand appeared before Hane's eyes. It was Hunchon. You're here. He walked up to him, asking if he was okay. Hun Xian smirks. Thanks for swatting that mosquito on my face. I should return the favor, shouldn't I? He then ordered his men to hold him down. Sang-nam is held in place as he approaches, taunting him. Oh look, there's another mosquito here. With that, Hun Xian landed a solid punch, then smirked, seemingly unsatisfied. What, you even had a child? And so Sang-nam takes a punch to the gut, followed by a kick from Hun Cheon. Damn, you scared me. And fried me too. He coughs in pain and collapses to his knees as the man laughs with satisfaction. This bastard acts so righteous. Do you enjoy being beaten like this? Then Hun Cheon forcefully grabs Sang-nam's chin, asking if his hobby is fighting for his friends. Hae-jin chimes in, mentioning that Da-hoon has a girlfriend. Her name's Da-hoon, right? His smile turned twisted. You have a girlfriend. Where is she? I want to see him. Every word made Sang-nam angrier as he dragged him over. He gritted his teeth, restraining his trembling hands from attacking. Sang-man, not wanting to fight, struggled and pleaded. Don't drag him into this. He's not my girlfriend. Stop it. Seeing this, Hunchon frowned in displeasure. Why are you struggling? I was having fun. Wait, I changed my mind. He raises his fist, daring him to a real fight, and Sang-nam asks bewildered, what? Hyun Cheon gleefully lays down the terms. If you win, it ends here. If I win, you're the loser. What do you say? Is it a deal? Though reluctant, he had no choice but to agree. I don't know if this is right, but I'll do as you say. Seeing this, he laughs triumphantly. What's wrong? Because you think you can hit me again. You've lost it, boy. Have you forgotten who I am? Hyun Cheon immediately throws a punch, saying, don't just stand there. Hit me. I won't let you off easy. Meanwhile, Sang-nam hesitated, but I was truly surprised, as Ha-jin charged forward with a mop, yelling, You bastard! He swung hard, hitting him in the head, and he fell face first to the floor, unable to react. Then Sang-nam was kicked repeatedly. At that moment, Dongjin couldn't take it anymore, and stepped out from the corner of the rooftop. Han-jin was the first to notice, turning to point and shout, That guy's his friend. Sang-man looked up as well. Dongjin, what's he doing here? They yelled, trying to stop him as he recklessly stepped forward. Meanwhile, Sang-man struggled to stop Dongjin, but with a cold resolve, Dongjin ripped free and lunged, piercing Sang-man's chest. He reached up to touch it and streams of siro poured out. Even as Sang-nam fell, he didn't forget to worry about his friend. Dongjin runs away the force of the previous attack, leaving a gaping hole in a nearby wall. Sang-nam lay unconscious face down on the floor as Jae turned back curious. Girl, what is this? The blonde's face shows discomfort. What's wrong with him? The other two said as they charged toward Dongjin. Who knew catch that bastard? Suddenly the surroundings turned dark. Then everything returned to how it was, but his face now wore a look of astonishment. Time seemed to rewind to when Dongjin was observing Hun Cheon, threatening someone from behind the hallway door. Because I can fall again. Don't get ahead of yourself. Things unfolded as before, and he sneered. Have you forgotten who I am? Hae-jin glanced at Nam with a triumphant look. Hun Cheon raises his fist, daring him to strike, or else he won't let him leave. Meanwhile, Dongjin was watching their every move, and suddenly he spoke. But before I could finish, Hae-jin charged with a mop, yelling, You bastard. Meanwhile, Dongjin flicked his finger as if controlling something, and the mop suddenly changed direction, striking Hun Cheon's head. Hae-jin looked embarrassed as he cursed, clutching his head. Damn it, you crazy bastard, he stammered, flailing his arms. Sorry, my hand slipped. And with that apology, Hae-jin was knocked flat on his back. Dongjin turned away satisfied as the other man screamed in pain, Hun Cheon's voice filled with rage. Get lost, you bastard. And with that, he leaped over the wall and quietly left. He clutches his head, looking unwell. Damn, I'm so dizzy. Jae-ho turns and suggests they take a break. I'm worried, but Hyun Unchan's face is contorted. No, I'm going to beat him to death myself. He immediately pushes him away. Get out of the way. Sang-nam, on the other hand, seemed worried. Are you okay? Hyun Cheon ignores him and charges forward. Worry about yourself. His fist comes inches from Sang-nam's face, but he narrowly dodges it. Missing his target, Hyun Cheon glares, then leaps into a spinning kick. This time, Sang-nam retreated to evade the blow, but he stumbled too far, crashing into the balcony wall. Hun Cheon throws another punch, and Sang-nam, unable to dodge, braces for the inevitable. But unexpectedly, he stops and bursts out laughing. Hi, Unun Cheon inwardly marvels. He's fast. He wore a triumphant look on his face. How do you like that? Is it worth it? Don't be such a coward, you bastard. Songnam acted nonchalant. I don't like fighting, so feel free to hit me. I won't dodge. Seeing this, Huncheon proposed. But I don't like that. Where's the fun in it? So let's play a game. And so he explained the rules of the game. How about a wheat game? Rice is a punch, and barley is a touch. Huncheon brandishes his fist menacingly. If you dodge my punch, you win. If not, I win. How about 10 rounds? Songnam hesitated. Okay, but inwardly wondered if he could dodge it. With that, he pointed at Sangnam's forehead. Let's begin. Barley. Huncheon repeats with a smile. Wheat. He gently placed his hand on his cheek. Just then, Sangnam covered his face and screamed barley. But Huncheon simply patted his cheek and laughed. It's barley, you bastard. He then repeatedly stroked his cheek, making the image repeat after him. Wheat, wheat, wheat. Feeling satisfied, Huncheon casually rotates his shoulders. Should I end this? What's this? Then Sangnam stammered, and the thug quickly lunged forward with his fist. Again, he closed his eyes, awaiting his fate, but the hand gripping his wouldn't allow Sangnam to do so. I can't avoid this. I don't know why. And so he disregards everything and returns the blow with his own fist. I'll do what I can. The result is a head-on collision, a momentary pause under the watchful eyes of everyone present. Huncheon's smile vanishes, replaced by a frustrated grimace. That crazy bastard. A moment later he turned and ordered, let's go. The blonde cautiously asked, what's wrong? Then his eyes narrowed as if he'd noticed something. It was the blonde noticing Huncheon's swollen hands. He worriedly asked about his hands but was immediately cut off. I know. Damn it. Huncheon quickly leaves and slams the door shut. Meanwhile, Sangnam lay sprawled on the floor, sighing in relief before his eyes widened as he wondered what he had done. Suddenly, a pair of feet slowly approached. Jiangnan turned to see Dongjin standing before him. At that moment, the bustling streets were crowded with people as Mienho sadly lowered his head and dragged his feet. He was quite sure there had been 2 time loops just now. He calmly recalls the first time the man attacked him, and the second time when time stopped. Is that why time reversed? He killed everyone and I saved them, Minho thought as he crossed the street. Saving someone reverses time. Is he a murderer? Suddenly his face fills with worry. Suddenly a voice from afar startled Minho. Hey student. He watched as the student turned away shyly. Yes. Inho didn't hesitate to demand, give me some cigarettes. He maintained a polite, quiet tone, I don't smoke. Inho leaned back laughing, I just saw you smoking over there. The jerk. Inho immediately stood up, ready to intimidate and bully, looking at me while saying that, maybe guys like you need rehab. Actually, it's a good thing. I'm not in a good mood today. The terrified student was sweating profusely. Okay, let me get you the drugs. He brushes off the pleas in annoyance, saying he'll beat him first. Mianhao turns away, muttering to herself, I'll pretend I didn't see anything before I get caught. He then went to YT Company where he was working at the front desk and bowed his head in greeting. He bids farewell, but his heart remains uneasy and restless. Perhaps we're opposites every time he kills time reverses. If that's true and he still kills, does he enjoy it? Mienho's internal struggle intensifies. It doesn't feel like the killer is doing this for pleasure. The image of the mysterious figure looking up in defiance. Die time manipulator. Mienho froze his mind racing. That's right, he called me a time manipulator. But what is a time manipulator? Time, control the ability to turn back time. He quickly answered his own doubts. Perhaps he's seeking those who can control time, which is why he's killing everyone. He mistook me for a time manipulator, though I don't know why. But Minho stared blankly at the computer screen for a long time. Why would he go to such lengths just to find a time manipulator? If I ignore him, things will be better. There's no way he doesn't remember me. On the school rooftop, as Jiangnam lay down, he suddenly heard footsteps approaching. He instinctively opened his eyes, trying to see who it was, as Jiangnan excitedly sat up and began peppering him with questions. Oh Dongjin, what are you doing here? Aren't you home yet? He anxiously gets up and paces around his friend. Are you leaving? Are you okay? Suddenly Dongjin grabs Songnam by the collar. He grits his teeth, glaring accusingly. Why do you care about me so much? Dongjin sadly and angrily recalls Songnam's words even as he was dying, leaving Songnam confused. What are you talking about? It's because you're my friend. Dongjin smirks, his contempt palpable. Tell those ridiculous stories to Nymph. Tell me the truth, who are you? Jiangnan was silent for a moment, then changed the subject. Dongjin. Do you still kill pigeons? Dongjin was stunned. What? Just then, memories of the pigeons resurfaced as Songnam approached Minho and stopped. He nervously glances around, confused. What is he talking about? Dongjin shivers as Saonam coldly and unflinchingly stares back. Saonam bows his head, expressing his gratitude, saying not to worry, he won't tell anyone because he is his benefactor. Dongjin froze, piecing it together. The person he met at the hospital was him. He coldly pushes his friend away and leaves, and he asks if I'm still killing pigeons. No, now I kill people. Why did Nam misunderstand and stammer? People. What do you mean by people? Dongjin. He quietly leaves, not forgetting to add a warning. There's going to be trouble at school tomorrow. Stay away if you want to live, Minhos. grandmother says as she pushes her cart into the night. Hayne sadly looks at the cardboard on the cart, realizing it's not enough. Besides, my grandson must be visiting, so I should head back. In the distance, Inho and Chanho were drinking and making a racket. Where did you hit that bastard? Damn, I wanted to hit him too. How would these bastards survive without me? He turned away, annoyed by the sound of Hazen's car approaching. Who's that? Inho shouts again, annoyed. What is this? Inho asks, eyes bulging. The old woman is taking it without asking. Hayne continues to silently grab the cardboard. Inho jumped up and turned around, saying the old woman must be deaf, then angrily kicked over her cart. Damn it. Hayne, terrified, pleads for mercy. I can't hear very well. Sorry, I didn't know it was yours. Inho smirks and curses. Are you crazy? Run you and Chanho in the back chuckled quietly as Inho impatiently demanded the lighter. He then picked up the cardboard and tore it in half before lighting it with a lighter and shouting, "This is really getting on my nerves. Look at this." Hayne sadly ran to stop him, but it was too late. Oh heavens. The student tries to intervene, but Inho strikes her hard, sending her crashing to the ground. She's too filthy. Without hesitation, he throws the lighter into the pile of cardboard on the ground. Hayne desperately reaches out, begging. Oh God, I collected all of that. The fire raged, reducing the paper to ash as the uneducated Inho trembled, and Chanho laughed triumphantly at the growing flames. Meanwhile, Minho left work, contemplating what to buy with his newly acquired salary. Should I buy some meat? The noise from across the park surprises Minho. What's that? Looking closer, he slowly realizes that Inho-ho's gang is gleefully tearing apart cardboard boxes. Minho-ho watched the fire burn, speechless. Annoyance and frustration bubbled up, but he could only stammer. Oh, Grandma. Minho rushed to Hayne and helped her up. What are you doing here? Please stand up. Minho, she said, taking his hand in comfort. Don't worry about me. You go home first. With a frustrated tone, Mienho raises his voice. What do you mean by that? Let's go home together, Grandma. Suddenly, Inho and his gang seemed embarrassed. Sorry, can't you see we're busy here? They approached one by one. Listen to your grandma. He placed his hand on Minho's hair. Or do you want to play too? Inho sneered contemptuously. Hayne rushed over, kneeling and begging for Minho's release, saying she was the one at fault. Like an uneducated brute, Inho kicks her, telling her not to touch him with her filthy hands as Minho rushes over, screaming for help. Hayne collapses to the ground in pain. Oh heavens. Seeing his mother bullied, Minho's eyes welled up with tears. Why would they do that? He looks up, questioning, why would you do that? As if on cue, the illiterates doused Minho with water, Ranu tilting his head back with a taunting laugh. Thanks to your grandma, I'm out of beer, you bastard. With the beer gone, they tossed the can at Minho's head and left Inho kicking him in the face, sending him sprawling and the can flying. They looked dejected and complained to each other. You did that on purpose. You missed, you bastard. Inho then followed up with a kick to Minho's stomach, sending him sprawling. Without hesitation, he kicks him in the face score. Minho dazedly tries to open his eyes, his voice slurred. Before losing consciousness, he sees them eagerly attacking Hazen, scoring points, and then succumbs to exhaustion and pain. Meanwhile, Dongjin arrives at a container depot, gazing up at a massive container high above. Dongjin channels his inner energy, causing his hair to levitate as the container begins to creak as if being lifted. Then it soared triumphantly into the air, fueled by Dongjin's excitement, as he gazed confidently towards the heavens. Enough. With that, the container fell back into place, kicking up dust, but Dongjin didn't hesitate to shield his face. He glared, plotting in his mind to slaughter everyone at the school tomorrow. Just as he stepped inside and prepared to take off his shoes, Dongjin overheard a conversation. Has our little one fallen asleep? Taemin playfully patted Dongjin's mother's belly. After happily patting his mother's belly, he's quiet now. Sensing a change, he turns and smiles. Oh, you're back. Come have dinner, we've already eaten. Dongjin politely declined, saying no thank you. I already ate with a friend. Nam leans back in his chair, reminding him, you should still call me Dad. Taemin raises his hand to calm his wife. It's all right. Getting angry isn't good for Tio. She then quickly shifted her attention to the child, saying, Oh Appa, he's hitting his sibling again. He really lunged forward in surprise. What a blockhead. Dongjin returned to his room and quickly removed his student ID, then sat down and turned on his laptop to catch up on the news. The screen displays the school's 2021 Safety Education Bulletin, announcing an earthquake and explosive ordnance drill. Meanwhile, Minho slowly awakens and opens his eyes to the sky, as Hayne anxiously wonders what to do. Oh heavens, Minho. He struggles to open his eyes in pain as Grandma Mienho jumps up and asks Han Hayne, Are you okay, Grandma? Are you hurt anywhere? She smiled warmly and kindly. I'm all right. He embraces his grandmother, overwhelmed with remorse, and apologizes profusely. It was my fault for not reporting it. Meanwhile, Run stumbles down the deserted street hiding. He held a gift box, but his voice was far from happy. Are you still awake? I have something to tell you, he said politely on the other end. Runhun laughed loudly and confessed sincerely to his child. Today is Cheonho's birthday, and we're sorry Dad is late. Dad will be home soon, but on the way, Chanho speeds past and slams into his shoulder. Runhun's gift falls to the ground, as Chanho and his cronies laugh triumphantly. I told you that jerk was a moron. The least you could do is apologize. Chanho turns and threatens. What did you say? Runhun stammered, looking up in confusion. I told you to apologize. Chan Ho then grabbed him by the collar and dragged him away. Is that so? Follow me. Terrified Runhun immediately begged for mercy. Wait, no. I'm leaving now, I'm sorry. But after running for a while, Runhun turned back to see Chan Ho quickly gaining on him. Runhun is grabbed by the hair and yanked back painfully as Chan Ho happily prepares to strike from behind. But before he could succeed, a light flashed as Minho rushed forward to block the blow. Chan Ho stared in surprise at the figure before him and silence fell. Minho trembled, sobbing inwardly as Chan Ho squinted, trying to make out who it was. Suddenly Minho grabs his hand, unleashing a surge of power that creates sparks. Chan Ho recoils, pulling his hand back and causing his teammate to stumble. Run Yu steps forward, questioning him on behalf of his comrades. Why are you interfering? Minho didn't respond, instead turning to Run Yu and urging Run, get out of here. He breathed heavily, and Run Yu nodded. Yes, sir. Run Yu then angrily kicks Minho in the stomach. Damn it, he was attacked and knelt down, clutching his stomach. Run Yu looked up and ordered, Hey you over there, take his hat off. Chan Ho moved closer, reaching out to reveal the other's face. Who the hell are you? Do you even know who we are? But Minho Ho had already grabbed his hand, immobilizing him. He continued to exert his power on Inho's arm, and suddenly Inho was jolted with electricity, gritting his teeth in pain. But Minho Ho didn't let go, causing Inho to curse in agony. He then passed out, face-planting into the ground, prompting Junu to grumble, What are you doing, loser? But Inho was unconscious, foaming at the mouth, unable to answer, and Junu suddenly felt fear and apprehension. He lunged forward, knocking off Minho's hat, and cursed him. Terrified Junu shouts, What kind of sick joke is this? Minho, sporting a bloody lip from the scuffle, nonchalantly wipes his mouth, recalling the image of Hain resting in her room. Minho closes the door, filled with worry, as Shujin gently reassures her son from outside. Don't worry, son, and go to sleep. I'll take care of Grandma. Minho, still distraught, blames himself, saying it's his fault, and that it wouldn't have happened if he had reported the assault sooner. Sujin approached him, holding his hand tightly. I told you, don't regret it, and blame yourself. Seeing her son burst into tears, she tried even harder to comfort him, saying, Minho, it's not your fault. It's okay. Minho then went to the bathroom and prepared his outfit, covering himself so no one would recognize him. Later that night, Mienho snuck out the window, casually flying through the night air. His face now filled with a murderous intent to avenge his grandmother. Run Yu laughed in surprise. Damn, what's wrong with you? He tilted his head, dumbfounded, and taunted. What's wrong? Did that old hag tell you to follow us? Minho instinctively raised his hand to his mouth, glaring at his opponent. Is this revenge for your grandma? Is that right? Suddenly Minho lunged forward, touching his face. But Run Yu quickly dodges the attack, causing him to miss, and Minho gapes in fear. Taking the opportunity, Junyu retaliates with a blow to the face, and as Minho doubles over, he spins ready to kick. Without hesitation, Junwoo delivers a devastating kick to Minho's stomach, sending him reeling backward. Junyu approached his father, demanding, Where are you hiding him? Give me the stun gun. Minho doesn't answer but glances down at his foot, quickly summoning power to it. Taking advantage of the moment, Minho grabbed his hand decisively. He stands and watches his enemy fall. What is this? Minho glares, delivering his verdict. This isn't revenge. This is for you, so you'll stop making any more victims. Run Yu, though scared, doesn't know when to quit, and continues to threaten him, the crazy bastard. As he spoke, Minho continued to use his power, making him beg and stammer. D times MN, it stop, let me go. He then released him and walked away, resolving not to inflict any more pain on the weak. Run Yu, regaining his strength, stood up and turned to leave in another direction. Once he was a good distance away, he finally dared to shout, You son of a bitch, go to hell. Minho then hung his head, hugging his knees and breathing heavily, lost in thought. There were 3 loops, but where was the 4th? Behind him, Runhun bows deeply in gratitude. Thank you. It was then that Minho remembered and politely replied, Oh, it was nothing. He anxiously inquired about the situation. Where is it? Regarding the stun gun, Minho waves his hand, feigning an excuse. That's not it. I just know a few self-defense moves. Then he bowed deeply in farewell. Please be careful. Runhun also left with a farewell. Thank you, he said. After the man left, Minho Ho continued to question his conscience. I can't believe I actually helped someone. It feels strange. Grandma, I did the right thing, didn't I? School. An early morning class that tires everyone out. The firefighter on the podium drones on about the lecture, saying that putting out a fire is like sweeping the floor, and then offers a riddle. How long can you use a fire extinguisher? 30 seconds, 10 seconds, 50 seconds. But Sang wasn't paying attention, his eyes darting around. Then the teacher answered his own question. The answer is 15 seconds, but his mind was elsewhere, his eyes darting around. And Dong Jin vanished. Sanam recalls yesterday's promise a fun event would happen at school tomorrow, so stay away if you want to live, and a sense of unease washes over him as he questions his conscience. What are you planning, Dongjin? At that moment, Dongjin descended from the sky like a sparrow, his face contorted hair wildly blowing in the wind. Dongjin lands not alone, but with containers following close behind, as Minho slammed against the wall trembles, realizing the bullying and Na Sang Nam's incident yesterday should be ignored. He threatened, his voice low. Got it. Minho coldly bowed his head in obedience. But where did Hai Unun Cheon suddenly come from? Don't forget you were involved in that incident, so don't say anything foolish. Minho didn't look at them, simply nodding in compliance. Okay. Runho quickly turned to his teammate and asked, "What are you going to do now, Na Sang Nam?" He squinted, calculating. "Wait, I'm thinking." Suddenly Minho looked up at the sky and was surprised to see strange objects floating above. Minho tried to get a better look at the people and objects above. Are those containers? Seeing Minho's silence as surprised and trembling, Runho growled, "What is it, you bastard?" Hai Unun Cheon also unconsciously looked up to observe. "What is that?" They both screamed like girls in terror, collapsing to the ground unconscious, leaving Minho bewildered. He looked up, observing and wondering to himself, could those containers be headed for Jim's room? But all the students are in there. Sang Nam turns to his friends, worried. "Hey Ji-hyun," she coldly replied. What he anxiously inquired about his whereabouts. "Do you know where Dongjin is?" Jia-hoo asked matter-of-factly, his eyes closed. "He must have skipped class. Let him sleep." But Sang Nam felt strange and worried that he had a bad feeling about this. Meanwhile, high above Dongjin plots his attack, believing these will kill them all. Whether you're a Time Lord or just a bastard. Suddenly Dongjin's eyes widened with frustration and resolve. "I'll make you stand out with this." With that, he released the containers to fall upon the students. Minho instinctively cried out, stammering, "No." Hearing the scream, Dongjin turned to look down, as Minho glared and gritted his teeth looking up. Minho looked up at Jin, who gazed back at his opponent, and at Dongjin's command, the containers fell before Minho. It fell quickly, as if pulled down by some force. And as expected, the containers crashed straight through the gym's ceiling. A chunk of the ceiling breaks off and lands in front of Minho, as screams of terror echo through the gym. This way, this way." Sang Nam runs but can't help looking back as a container crashes through the gym's ceiling. Sang Nam tripped and fell hard only for a slab of rock to appear above him. But Ga-hyun quickly pulled him away, telling him to get up. As Ga-hyun pulled him away, a slab of rock crashed to the ground, while Minho Ho strained to push the rock away from himself. He grits his teeth, straining as if channeling inner strength. Finally, Minho pushes the boulder aside. The attack leaves him exhausted, and Minho watches his opponent, anticipating their next move. He quickly flies up and commands, "Please stop." Dongjin glances back, pleased. "You've finally arrived." Who are you?" Minho's eyes widened in surprise. "Don't tell me you did all this just to find me." But Dongjin didn't respond, instead looking at Minho's badge, confirming he was a sophomore just as he thought. Then he hesitated, looking down at Sang Nam, who was critically injured under the boulder. Dongjin cursed under his breath while Minho pleaded, "I'm not the one you're looking for, so please stop." Dongjin gritted his teeth in fury, extending his hand in challenge, then die. A series of beams then pierced through Minho. He reached out in agony, barely able to utter a few words before finally collapsing to the ground. Dongjin grits his teeth, annoyed. "What? It wasn't you. He's not a time manipulator." Then he looked up to the sky and shouted as everything faded to black and white. Back to the time when Hoon Cheon and Junho were bullying Minho. "You haven't forgotten you were involved in that mess, have you?" he interrogated sternly. "Don't tell me." Before he could finish, the basketball came flying, hitting Junho square in the face, sending them both crashing to the ground. Mienho dodges, pressed against the wall, as Dongjin quickly grabs the ball. Mienho stammered, wondering how he'd been found out. Dongjin picks up the ball and interrogates him. "Kang Minho, who are you?" "You're the one who caused the time loop during 5th period yesterday." Hearing this, Minho is immediately flustered. Suddenly Dongjin walks away, leaving Minho to face the sharp rocks that appear behind him. He realized it and turned around only for them to pounce. Sharp rocks pressed against Minho's neck. Dongjin angrily orders his friends to evacuate, wondering if he's the one trying to stop him, but he's missed something. "Every time you triggered a loop, I could feel it too." Minho's eyes darted around in fear. "I don't remember those loops, but he knows everything." Calmly confessing it all. "Me too. I can feel a loop every time I see you kill someone. To be honest, I know why you're doing this. You want to find the one who controls the loop, right?" Minho sadly hangs his head. "I'm just a victim of that loop. Because of that loop, I couldn't save anyone." Dongjin glared back. "Save people? Can you save the dead?" Minho nods repeatedly. "That's right, but every time I save someone, time reverses. I'll help you." He reaches out, offering to escape this loop together, begging Dongjin to stop hurting others. But Dongjin is only annoyed, incredibly frustrated. "We're in the same boat, so how could you possibly help me? What else can I do besides kill to prove myself?" Despite the painful threat, Mienho struggles to speak, saying that something very strange happened yesterday. The loop reset further back than usual. Perhaps the loop we created has been disrupted. Dongjin was so suspicious he froze. "What, the loop is disrupted?" Dongjin eyed him suspiciously. "A disrupted loop?" Minho hesitated. "I'm not sure, but..." He continued with difficulty. "The loop definitely went back further than usual, because I saved the teacher." This immediately made Dongjin frown. He ordered sternly, "How is that possible? Tell me everything." Minho then began to explain, "I saved the teacher when I went to the classroom and attacked everyone. I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't just leave her." You attacked me then, and the loop immediately reset. But something was very strange. Minho paused for emphasis. Time didn't rewind, it stopped. Dongjin couldn't believe his ears. What? Despite his doubt, Minho continued saying that everyone, including Dongjin, was frozen except for him, or rather moving in slow motion. Moments later it shattered, triggering another loop. Minho muttered another loop within a loop, it seemed. It seemed so. At this, Dongjin's eyes betray a flicker of unease. Could it be? Minho recalled that moment. When I woke up, I was back before class started. Usually time reverses to when the teacher is about to die. With that, Dongjin rested his chin on his hand, speculating. If what he said was true, it seemed the person who triggered the loop before retained their memories. His hair shadowed his face as Dongjin leaned in, his voice low. Because I don't remember anything at all. Minho nodded in response. I think you're right, he calmly retorts. Wasn't he the one who stole the loop? Even memories. Hearing this, Dongjin glanced away, questions racing through his mind. The loop can be stolen. How many times have we gone back? Dongjin reached out his hand, intrigued. As he spoke, the sharp leaves on Minho's neck suddenly shot out, startling him. Dongjin coldly warned, I won't believe it until I see it for myself. He then casually confirmed, you said you'd help me, right? Minho hesitantly mumbled in agreement, his eyes fixed on the unconscious men sprawled on the ground before him. Dongjin suddenly proposed a condition. If you want to help revive these bastards after I kill them. This immediately caused Minho to shout out in confusion. Why? Why would you do that? Dongjin calmly stated, revive them then, I'll kill them again to steal your loop. Minho hesitated, but contrary to his worries, Dongjin simply glanced over. No pressure, it's just an experiment. Minho sweats nervously, feeling like he's being turned into a murderer. Dongjin closes in a mocking smile on his face, saying it seems they're tormenting him, so why should he feel guilty, knowing those bastards? Minho hesitated, admitting they weren't good people, but killing them, he finally mumbled, I can't do it. Dongjin, unfazed, coldly turned away, saying there was no choice but to kill them until he did. Minho stared blankly at him. What did he just say? Dongjin nonchalantly flicks a leaf. What is it? Wouldn't it be better to just kill that trash? I'll kill them again and again. Minhuang desperately rushes in front of him, shouting, no, are you sure you want to kill them? He looked at him with pleading eyes. I won't help you this way. Dongjin was immediately displeased with this attitude. He pointed the leaf forward, slowly threatening him. Then I'll just kill you first. With that, the leaf tore through the air towards the frozen Minho. He could only widen his eyes, horrified at the reflection of the leaf's tip growing larger in his pupils. Minho instinctively reached out to block it, and a burst of pink lightning erupted from his palm. In the blinding light of the lightning, a look of disbelief quickly replaced the grim expression on Dongjin's face as he muttered to himself in disbelief. Isn't his ability supposed to be resurrection? Suddenly a whirlwind of rage sends leaves scattering. Dongjin clenched his fist, his voice laced with anger. You're hiding your abilities, you bastard. Leaves were torn from the trees, suspended in the air. Finally, Dongjin flicks his hand, sending everything hurtling forward like a sudden tornado. Seeing this, Minho frantically shouts to stop him. Wait! Just then he was swept off his feet by the wind, his scream echoing through the air. Dongjin frowned and impatiently waved his hand, redirecting the leaves. Immediately they obeyed, hurtling toward the wall and bouncing back, and Minho's eyes widened as he realized something. With that thought, he nimbly dodged the sharp leaves flying like bullets, and swiftly blocked one aimed at his face. It suddenly froze in midair, as if held by an invisible force. Below, Dongjin was carefully watching every move when the leaf suddenly shot down, grazing him before he could react. A bloody gash suddenly appears on Dongjin's cheek, leaving him in disbelief, as Minho collapses to the ground, gasping for breath. Stop right there, I don't want to fight you. But Dongjin had completely lost it. He furrowed his brow, gritted his teeth, and growled, then do as I say. With that, Minho's neck was seized, and Dongjin waved his hand, painfully suspending him in midair. Minho gasped for air, clawing at his throat, his voice choked and broken. There's another way. Please don't kill me. As he finished speaking, Dongjin clenched his fist and slammed Minho into the brick wall behind him, roaring as if unable to contain his madness. Minho's body slammed against the wall with a sickening crack. He bit down, screaming in agony, his body limp as if shattered. Dongjin's eyes narrowed as he commanded, choose someone to experiment on. He ground out each word. The deadline is tonight. You don't get to choose whether or not to kill. Dongjin added through gritted teeth. You better do as I say unless you want to see your family dead. With that, he flicked his hand, sending Minho flying into the air. Then with another swift wave, he mercilessly slammed Minho into the brick wall. A sickening thud echoed as his body went limp and slid to the hard ground. Minho could only groan in pain, his vision blurring as Dongjin stared down at him. Then darkness, and he was back at school. Outside the deserted school grounds, a teacher speaks softly in a classroom. Today we have a new transfer student. He casually prompted, introduce yourself, Ha-Yun. Hearing this, Ha-Yun immediately waved and smiled brightly. Hello, I'm Song Ha-Yun. The students below couldn't help but gasp. He's so handsome, just my type. Ha-Yun continued, her eyes full of affection. It's so nice to meet you all. I hope we can all get along. Min's accent isn't great since he lived abroad, but he hopes they can all be friends. A male student excitedly shouts, what are you guys doing? Clap clap as the girl next to her yawns with boredom. How impressive. The teacher pointed and instructed, sit there. Amidst the noisy crowd, only Dongjin lowered his head in thought. If the experiment succeeds, I'll be able to summon the time manipulator. He pursed his lips, silently calculating. That's right, I should use that loop. It's the only way to destroy that bastard. Dongjin was determined to make the experiment succeed, and as Ha-Yun passed by, she glanced at him with a mysterious smile. In the blink of an eye, it's evening after school, and Minho is walking and talking on the phone. Yes, Mom, I'm on my way home from work. Whose friend? The moment that name was uttered, he frantically recalled the lines. Minho's pace immediately quickened. In his heart, he muttered no mother as he ran headlong in desperation. Grandma. As soon as Minho arrived, he threw the door open. Sujin glanced at him and asked, Why are you in such a hurry? Your friends are still waiting. Minho hurriedly took off his shoes. How is mother? Her words made Minho grit his teeth. She's in the living room, don't worry, go play with your friend. At that moment, Minho rushed straight to his bedroom and threw the door open. And in that instant he saw Dongjin casually sitting in a chair playing with apple slices floating in the air. As soon as he noticed Minho's presence, he immediately turned around, his eyes, sharp as knives, betraying undisguised hostility. Minho slowly entered, his voice laced with annoyance. How did you find me? With a calm smirk, Dongjin said, Your ID card when you fainted. Hearing this, Minho trembled with rage. He furrowed his brow, struggling to restrain himself. Get out. Dongjin casually stabbed an apple slice with a floating fork, then asked, Want a bite? Your mom peeled it for me. Dongjin's nonchalant attitude immediately infuriates Minho. I said get out. As soon as he finished speaking, the levitating fork shot forward and pierced the wooden door behind him, leaving Minho wide-eyed in shock. Dongjin tilted his head slightly, and said sorry as his hand slipped. The loud noise quickly draws Sujin's attention, and her voice calls from outside. Do you need anything? With a stern expression, Mian-ho replied no, mother. She nodded. All right. Dongjin casually swiveled his chair to face him, questioning him face to face. Have you decided who will die, and who will be saved? Minho glanced away resolute. No matter how many times you ask, I will never kill. But before he could finish, the scene around Minho shook violently, a purple light illuminating his panicked face. Minho's eyes widened as he looked around, thinking time loop, before hesitantly asking, What are you doing? That expression only made Dongjin smirk. Surprised. I already killed your mother. And of course you're next. Mien Hoang was utterly stunned into silence. What? His hands clenched until they were white, his body trembling uncontrollably. Then Minho's eyes began to fill with tears. In his inner turmoil, he ground out each word like a furious growl. You're not even human, you bastard. But his words held no sting for Dongjin, who casually threatened that next time it would be his grandmother. Minho was confused. The loop's disruption might just be speculation, so why is that experiment so important? Dongjin stares him down, clarifying, Of course it's important. Because I need to summon that bastard, Minho hesitantly repeats. That bastard. Are you talking about the looper? The meaning behind the words slowly dawns on him. Dongjin's somber voice echoed, Yes, the controller of time. He slowly picked it up and continued. From what I know, I told you in 5th period. Dongjin then stuck it into a piece of apple, stating his plan to disrupt the loop until it threw the flow of time into chaos. Dongjin darkly muses that if he intends to bother him, he'll return the favor just like that curse that bastard cast. These words only fuel Minho's anger. He bit his lip in frustration, wondering, how many more people is he planning to kill? First, I should accept his offer and look for an opportunity later. In that moment, Minho reluctantly nodded. I know what you're up to. Now leave. Dong. Jin couldn't help but grin. I'll do as you say. He then slowly stood up, and Minho added, I'll text you the time and location tomorrow. Dongjin moved in close. He said in a low voice, I'll decide who gets to be the experiment. Immediately after, he slammed his hand on the door behind Minho. The rough impact rattled the wooden frame as Dongjin spoke with amusement. I found a very interesting subject for experimentation. Minho warns him sternly, Don't you dare hurt my mother or grandmother because I won't stand for it. A few minutes later, in the still of the night, Dongjin's footsteps echo slow and steady like the ticking of a clock. He looked down at his phone, the screen's light reflecting on his face, revealing an undisguised interest. There was another one, and the screen showed Min Young smiling brightly. Dongjin continued darkly, Don't you think so? Kang Minyo coughed after leaving Mino's house as Dongjin quietly walked down the deserted street. He clutches his phone, a strange delight filling his eyes. There's still one more. On the screen is Min Young's picture. Am I right? Minho. A gentle hand knocks on the door. Sujin slowly pushes the wheelchair forward, her voice full of hospitality. Minho is on his way back, so please have this while you wait. Dongjin sat silently with his back turned, the shadows concealing his expression. Finally, he tilted his head slightly and replied, Yes, thank you. He takes the sliced apples, then suddenly asks, But when will Minho's father be back? Sujin lowered her head, a look of sorrow washing over her face. Minho's father died in a traffic accident 5 years ago. She then gently wheeled herself away, saying, Don't worry about it, get some rest. But in that moment, Dongjin suddenly asked, his voice laced with hidden meaning, Wait, did Minho have a girlfriend? Sujin stops in her tracks, Minho's girlfriend. He's never dated anyone. Dongjin's eyes narrowed with amusement. Is that so? There's a girl next to Minho in this picture. He must be hiding her. He then quickly held up his phone. Do you know her? Suin immediately burst out laughing as soon as she saw the picture. You mean Minho's younger sister? Dongjin asked curiously. He has a sister. She nodded slowly. Yes, they're 3 years apart, but due to family reasons, she's lived with her aunt since she was 10. At that moment, Dongjin smiled and replied, Henry, she looks like a pinwheel. Just then the two forks on the table suddenly trembled slightly, then suddenly flew up and floated in the air. They circled for a moment before hurtling towards the stunned Shin as Dongjin calmly spoke, his voice growing colder. But his hair began to fly wildly, his eyes glowing with a mysterious light. I need you to tell me the school she's attending. The dim light reflected off Shin's face, revealing her utter bewilderment and panic. The needle silently approached her neck just a hair's breadth away as Dongjin continued his threat. I have some important things to do. Back in reality, Dongjin is still staring down at his phone as Minho bites her lip, a sense of injustice rising in her chest. In his mind, he roared, what has that bastard done to my mother? I can't forgive him. Seeing her son standing blankly by the window, Shin approached him asking, oh my, what happened to your uniform? Minho gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with a complex unspoken emotion. He bent down, took his mother's hand and explained, I fell on the way home. Sujin anxiously raised her voice. Are your friends still giving you trouble? Minho shook his head, replying, no, tightening his grip on his mother's hand. Shin was perplexed to see her son like this. What's wrong? Is something the matter? Minho hesitated just as Hain slowly approached, supporting himself. Do you want me to sew it for you? Sujin quickly refused. No, Mom, we can ask someone else. She asks again. But she needs to wear it tomorrow, and who would do it at this hour? Finally, Hain looked up at her grandson and reminded him, listen to your grandmother. Minho stood up awkwardly, rubbing his neck. Yes, okay. He then asked with concern, Grandma, would you like a foot massage? But Hazen simply turned away her voice, gentle but firm. Go study. Minho's hand froze in midair, his eyes drooping with sadness, a lump forming in his throat. Mom, Grandma, I'll protect you both. Later, at a deserted construction site, a dazzling pink light suddenly erupted from a hidden corner. Minho, cloaked in shadows, raised a hand, watching sparks dance around his fingers, brow furrowed as he struggled to recall the moment how he'd done it. At that moment, the leaf stopped as he instinctively reached out to catch it, but it wasn't his intention. It then shot straight across Dongjin's face. He pondered ruefully he had done it without even knowing. With that in mind, Minho bent down to pick up the stone from the ground, staring at it, wondering if he should try again. Instantly, Minho raised his hand, and thin streaks of lightning began to weave through his fingers, crackling in the still air. Then in a split second, the stone in his palm fell to the ground. Minho silently bent down to pick it up, calculating in his mind. Is that it? He tossed it up and down, questions swirling in his mind. Did he need to use his entire arm? Snapping out of his thoughts, Minho suddenly pulls his hand back and hurls the stone into the air, a powerful bolt of lightning erupting from his palm and striking it. Finally, it hurtled toward the neatly stacked bricks, and instantly a massive explosion filled the air with smoke and dust. As the dust settles, a gaping hole appears in the bricks, a clear sign of extraordinary power. Minho is amazed, realizing what he's capable of. He stared down at his arm, muttering that he needed more practice. Should he make it stronger? Minho then raised his hand towards the pile of bricks, familiar lightning crackling around his fingertips, growing stronger. A moment later, a huge explosion threw Minho backwards. He muttered in pain, this won't work. Frustrated, Minho removed his hat and mask. Even if Min throws something at him, he can block it with outburst. Come to think of it, defense is also a problem for me. Once he catches me, I'm done for. Is there any way? Minho pondered, I can only attack with my hands, so I have to be fast. It would be better if I could dodge his attacks. With that, he couldn't help but sigh in frustration. Easier said than done. Meanwhile, in the distance, a figure appears out of nowhere. Minho sulks, wishing he had friends to fight with as we return to the city. The streets are deserted, and on the rooftop of a tall building, a large figure sits in silent contemplation. Hyuncheon crossed his arms, annoyed. Why hadn't that bastard come yet? He remembered Saonam frantically grabbing his hand, urging Senior Huncheon wake up. Annoyed, Hyuncheon pushed him away. Damn, you're loud. I'm awake already. Keep it down, you little mutt. Nameless worriedly asked, what do we do now? He shook his head, annoyed. I don't know. Damn it, it feels like we were hit by something, but I can't remember what. Huncheon couldn't help but curse. Who the hell was that? I'm so pissed. Just then, Sangnam suddenly spoke quickly, stopping Huncheon. Wait, don't wake it up. He tilted his head, his voice suddenly turning grave. Hey, I need to talk to you. Meet me on the rooftop tonight. Was Saonam confused? Why? Huncheon smirked sinisterly. Don't be scared, you bastard, we're not fighting. Come alone, got it. Back in reality, Huncheon smokes his cigarette and sighs in frustration as the sound of footsteps approaches from afar. Hi, Unan teases, are you here, Na Sangnam? How are you so light? Is that what you want? Just then, a blinding purple light shone directly into his face, causing his eyes to widen in terror. Terrified, Hyuncheon trembled, dropping his cigarette as he stammered, what the hell? What are you? The figure's steps grew closer, bringing with them an unnerving pressure. Despite trembling like a leaf, Hun Qian strained to warn him. You're insane. Wait, don't come closer. I said don't come closer. His bandaged hand instinctively tightened on the edge of the railing, clinging to his last bit of balance, a sharp pain erupting as the wound on his wrist was compressed. Hun Qian cried out in pain, clutching his arm, his face paling from the sudden spasm. In mere seconds, his large frame teetered precariously on the edge of the rooftop. In freefall, Hun Qian screamed in panic, his desperate cries echoing across the rooftop. Damn it, his scream faded into nothingness. Just then, Sang-nam arrived, his face drenched in sweat from rushing. I'm sorry, Senior, I had to sneak away, so I'm a little late. But there was no one on the rooftop, and Sang exclaimed in surprise, hasn't he arrived yet? Confused, he holds the phone to his ear and mutters, did he leave after waiting? He should have called. But just as he dialed, a familiar ringtone echoed in the distance, stopping Sang in his tracks, and he looked around in surprise. He must be here. Without hesitation, Sang-nam followed the sound, calling out, Senior, are you there? But in that instant, Sang-nam's eyes fell upon Hun Qian's massive body sprawled on the ground, a pool of crimson blood beneath his face. He cried out in horror, Senior. The next morning at school, the students began to gather. Jia Hyun approached and said cheerfully, Hyun, I'll send you a message. Hyun glanced back. You can invite me to the group chat. Jia Hyun was surprised and paused. I'll invite you. It was then that she noticed the strange atmosphere behind her. Sang-nam's pensive face makes her suspicious. What happened? Dong-jin, standing nearby, also felt something was off. Why did the atmosphere feel so strange? Thinking this, Gun immediately approached him, teasing, Hey, why so quiet today? Why aren't you talking about your Dong-jin like you usually do? Sang-nam dejectedly tells her to leave him alone, saying he couldn't sleep last night. Jia Hyun asked, confused, what's wrong? In Sang-nam's mind, the memories of last night begin to surface. The piercing wail of ambulance sirens. The paramedics arrived and carried away Hun Chioni's body, his eyes shut tight, completely still. Back in reality, Sang-nam reluctantly declines, head bowed. It's better if he doesn't know. It's not his business. Jia Hyun waited patiently, her concern growing. She crossed her arms and puffed out her cheeks. What to do? I'm so curious. Did they fight? I'm so worried. What's wrong with him? Then Hyun brushes past Dong-jin. What was he doing just now? But now she sees him zooming in on Minang's picture. Hyun's eyes widened in shock as she saw a girl clenching her fist and quickly dodging away. Why is that maniac looking at that picture? What is this? I'm getting goosebumps. Just then, Jin-ha burst into the classroom shouting, Hey Nam Sang-nam. He brutally approached Sang-nam and kicked his chair away. At that moment, Un was caught off guard and staggered, his chair kicked across the room. Why is Nam rushing to catch her? Are you okay? Jia Hyun gritted her teeth, ready to curse. Damn it, Jia, Hyun then angrily shouts, What are you doing in our class? If you want to fight, take it outside. Dong-jin was also drawn in by the commotion. But Tran-ha completely ignored her, staring Sang-nam down. Hey, what the hell is going on? What's wrong with him? Sang-nam avoids his gaze, explaining that Hun Qian told him to come yesterday. He was already like that when I arrived, so I called the police. Chan-ha grew even more frustrated by his attitude. Don't be ridiculous. This is all your fault. Who else but you could have driven him to this? Seonam bit his lip as he listened to him shout. My brother is still in the recovery room. Jia Hyun looked at him, puzzled. What were they talking about? She anxiously pressed. There's no way you didn't do anything right. Dong-jin quietly hid his phone behind her, his face betraying no emotion. Jia Hai-hun insisted he listen, asking what had happened, and soon the three of them stood facing each other on the school rooftop. Sao nervously explained, I called the police last night and my parents came too. But Tran folded her arms, completely unconvinced. Really? How come I didn't know? Cheon-hai, smoking beside him, chimed in. You must have been asleep again. Cheon-ho pursed his lips, thinking, is that so? He suddenly reaches out, apologizing for the misunderstanding, regretting his mother woke him up. Just then, Sao-nam slowly reached out his hand, but in that moment Tran-hoim slapped it away in disdain. You think I'd tell him that? He repeatedly yelled in Sang's face. I won't believe a word you say until my brother wakes up. Got it. He turns away defeated. If that's all, I'll be going. Suddenly, Chan-ho spoke up, asking, will you tell Dong-jin the truth? Sam glared at him coldly. Enough, he says, furrowing his brow. Dong-jin has nothing to do with this. I don't know why you called me here, but I just wanted to apologize. What are you apologizing for? Chan-ho asked, annoyed. For knocking my brother unconscious, Sang-nam replied ruefully. That too, but his hand was injured because of me. Chan-ho asks directly. So you're the one who did it. He pressed on. Did you get into a fight? Sang-nam retorts. No, I just don't want things to get worse, so I don't think that's a good idea. He began to explain. I lost control without realizing it. Sang-nam glanced at him in silence, his tone gentle but threatening. Please don't lay a hand on Dong-jin. Tran-ho frowned, replying firmly. It's not certain. Perhaps Dong-jin pushed my brother. Sang-nam shakes his head in disbelief. No way, Dong-jin would never do that. But then at that moment Dong-jin's voice suddenly echoed in his head. Now I'm a murderer. The thought sends Sang-nam's eyes widening in horror. Chan-ho notices this behavior, asking why he suddenly looks so shocked, calling it suspicious. Sangnam hesitated, replying that it was nothing, secretly thinking about what he had just done. Chanho scoffed, realizing this guy could never focus whenever Dongjin was mentioned. Just kidding, loser. How could that bastard push my brother? Just then he gets a call. How is it at school? Okay. Cheon, hi, standing nearby, asked, has your mom arrived yet? Tranho nodded. Samnam continued to recall Dongjin's words. There's going to be some fun stuff happening at school tomorrow. No way. Dong returns to the school grounds as Minho is grabbed by the collar by a group of thugs groaning in pain. Wait a minute. Runho scoffs, shoving him aside. He raised an eyebrow, questioning. You bastard, you're the one who tried to kill Hun Cheon, aren't you? Minho immediately retorted, saying he would never do such a thing. But Hanan had completely lost his cool. It was you bastard. Run continues to interrogate him, asking what he did last night. With a heavy heart, Minho confessed, I went home after work. That's the truth. However, Run is completely enraged. He shoves him hard, yelling, what home are you talking about, you bastard? He threatened angrily, if you talk nonsense again, I'll kill you. Minho winces, rubbing his face. I'm not lying. Jae-ho glanced around, trying to recall every suspect. Who else could stand against Hun Cheon? Runho immediately replied, Nah, Sangnam is the only one I can think of. Han Jin suddenly spoke up, there's one more. The one with the greatest grudge. Di-ho turned his head in disbelief. Who is he trying to guess? It's Bakdong-su. Di-ho repeats the name Bakdong. Shu Han Jin nods. Maybe his ghost appeared. Di-ho scoffs, annoyed. Damn it, you want to get hit. Jun-ho chimed in. Come on, man, he could have fainted from the shock of its ghost. He immediately cursed. Get lost, you loser. Meanwhile, at the junior high, 2 female students were having lunch together in the cafeteria. Meanwhile, Yu-jin held a mix of red and white pills in her palm, prompting Min-young to ask, what are those? Yu-jun calmly took a sip of water and replied, it'll make you prettier. With that, she picked up her tray and added, if you take them, you'll lose weight and your skin will get better too. Min-young teases in disbelief. What, no way. The girl chased after her, curiously begging, why are you drinking it alone? Let me have some. Yu-jin glanced over, questioning. This is a psychotropic drug. Are you sure you want to drink it? The girl asked, surprised. Psych meds. Why? Just as the 2 girls were talking, a scream suddenly echoed from afar. Hey, do you and Sungbin's discomforting questions? Why haven't you been answering my calls? Eugene asks listlessly. You're not my boyfriend anymore, so can you just leave? Min-young asked, surprised and curious if they had broken up. Sungmin, unwilling to give up, patted her shoulder. Hey, are you just going to let it end like this? Yuju calmly replies, I don't think that's what you want. She coldly turns her head and continues. Should I expose everything you've done to me? Immediately, Yujin angrily pushed him away, saying, get lost if you don't want to be humiliated, you idiot. Her words immediately made Sungmin grit his teeth in frustration. Later on campus, the 2 girls sat together on a park bench eating ice cream. After hearing everything from Yujin, Min-young exclaimed in disbelief, really? He hit you? Yuan sadly lowered her head and replied, it wasn't just once. Isn't my endurance amazing? That's awful. Min-young exclaimed, shocked that he would do that. Yu-jane, enraged, throws her popsicle, saying he always has such a serious face. Min-young gasps, what do you mean? The girl clutches her head, sighing, that idiot anyway, these past few days have been difficult for me. Min-young sadly encourages her, hang in there, Yin. At that moment she hesitated, glancing away, admitting she had another worry. Yujin was puzzled. What Min-yang begins to explain that it's her birthday this weekend, but she doesn't know what to give herself. Yu-jane immediately suggests that her mother loves it when she gives her collagen essence. Min-young's eyes fill with a complex expression. Expensive, she smiles and shakes her head. Not too expensive. Then Yuan asked, why do you care more about her than your own mother? The girl quickly explained, because she raised me when I was 10. Just then, a boy called out from afar, hey Min-yang, he's reminding you that he's looking for you. Min-young was surprised. My brother. Min-young spoke slowly after exiting the school gates. Brother, why didn't you call me? But all she got in response was a cold back leaning against the lamppost. Dongjin coldly glares at her, his body radiating a strange light, and Min-yang asks hesitantly, who are you? Upon seeing Dongjin, Min-young was confused, asking, who are you? Dongjin cheerfully introduced himself. Hello, Min-young, I'm a friend of Minho's. The little girl politely replied, oh, hello. Then Min-young asked, where's my brother? He replied, he went to get something. He said he has a gift for you. The little girl asked, confused, a birthday present for my aunt. Dongjin awkwardly replied that he forgot he told them to wait at the cafe. Minwei responded, yes. Hearing this, he excitedly shouts, all right, let's go. Later, the 2 walked together down a deserted road to the cafe, when Dongjin suddenly asked, can you call Minho? She replied, just a moment, and immediately took out her phone, staring intently at the screen. Suddenly, Dongjin shouts in surprise, Minho, there you are. Thinking Minho has arrived, Min-young drops her phone and excitedly calls out to her brother. But then, with an icy expression, Dongjin unleashed his power, sending Min-young flying back with a scream of pain. He tightened his grip on her neck, until she could only whisper brother, before losing consciousness. As she fell, he quickly caught her phone slipping from her grasp. The phone slips from her grasp, hanging in the air for a moment before falling to the ground. Dongjin quickly caught the phone, gently holding it in his hand as he sadly gazed down at the girl. In a quiet corner of the neighborhood, Minho sits deep in thought, furrowing his brow. Huncheon's in critical condition. There's no way Sangnam would do that. He tells himself it must have been Yongin who was planning to use Huncheon as a test subject. He recalled that moment, suspicion growing in his heart. But why? Why would he throw him off the roof? He shouldn't kill him if he wants to experiment on him. What the hell is Dongjin planning? Suddenly his phone rings. He answered the phone and saw his sister was calling, accepting the call and holding it to his ear. Confused, he said, "Oh, Minyoung, no one's answering on the other end." He then asked, "Hello, what's going on?" Just then, Dongjin's voice echoed, taunting Minho, whose eyes widened at the sound. He cried out in disbelief, "Kim, Dongjin, what are you doing?" On the other end, Dongjin revealed a sly smile. He calmly announced, "I've decided to use her as a test subject. The person Minho had to kill today." Minho braced himself for the worst. But reality is always harsh. Dongjin's words hit him like a truck. Your sister Minho recalled being shoved against the wall at school, wondering how he knew about his sister. As he fell, Dongjin pulled his phone from his pocket. He thought he'd changed the wallpaper, and that he thought he had a girlfriend. Dongjin then answered his question. His mother had a photo of him and his sister. "I had to kill her 13 times to find out what school she goes to." Hearing this, Minho flew into a rage. "Where are you?" he calmly replies. "Don't get so worked up. I'll send you the address. Just go there, follow the plan, because I've prepared something else in case you refuse to kill your sister." Furious, Minho retorted, "Where are you, you bastard?" But contrary to his anxious mood, Dongjin simply remarks that he seems quite angry, wondering if he's really the Kang Minho he knows. He'll text him the address, since he's already on his way. The hospital. He'll see him soon. Just then, the heavens opened and a heavy rain began to fall. People scattered, but Minho remained. He drops his phone, biting his lip, unable to believe she's been taken. "Damn it, Minyang, I'm coming for you, just hold on." Moments later at Sim Hospital, Minho panting thought to himself, "Which floor?" And then he shouted, his voice echoing throughout the hospital floor. "Minyang, I'm here. If you can hear me, answer me." Suddenly, a figure appeared behind Minho, wielding a long wooden stick that caught his attention. Without hesitation, the figure raised the wooden stick, shocking Minho. "What?" Thanks to his quick reflexes, Minho dodged the attack. He opened his eyes wide, trying to see who it was. But what he saw defied belief. A puppet suspended from the ceiling had just attacked him. Minho could only ask what. Then the sound of wood striking the floor echoed throughout the hospital ward. The puppet, expressionless, held the wooden stick, its eyes closed and cheeks sunken like sticks. The puppet hung in the air, staring at Minho, who was sitting in front of it, and Minho thought in horror, what? Is he dead? Or just unconscious? He then turned and shouted, "Kim Dongjin, stop hiding and show yourself." But then, as if realizing something, he fell silent and stared at the puppet before him. Suddenly it swung the wooden stick, aiming straight for Minho's head, but luckily he dodged in time. He frowned, gritting his teeth and cursing under his breath. Damn it. Just then the puppet raised the wooden stick it held high in front of Minho and aimed it straight down at him. However, he quickly dodged the attack, immediately got up and turned to run. As he ran, he glanced back at the puppet, wondering, where did it go? "Hey Kim Dongjin, show your face." He suddenly sensed no one behind him and immediately turned around. The moment he lost sight of the puppet, he gasped, it's gone." Sensing danger, he turns to see something that widens his eyes in shock, and in an instant Minho is thrown backward. He slammed painfully into the hospital wall, then screamed, "You bastard." Before long, a figure approached in the distance. The puppet, wielding a broken wooden beam, floated closer to Minho. It passed right in front of him, but then the puppet sensed Minho nearby and turned around. Minho shouted, "Why are you doing this to me? Let me see my sister." Wait, but at this moment the puppet unhesitatingly raises the wooden stick to attack Minho. The splintered wood flew like an arrow, but veered away from Minho's face. The wooden puppet froze, and Minho gasped for breath when a voice commanded it to bow its head. Having given his command, Dongjin indifferently tells Minho that his sister is upstairs, and Minho collapses to the floor, free from Dongjin's control. He threatens, "What have you done to her? I'll kill you." Dongjin stared at him with a killer's gaze, and in an instant, Minho rushed up the stairs. He saw his sister lying on the chair next to Dongjin and shouted, "Minyang, are you okay, Minyang?" As Minho approached, the puppet raised its wooden bar, and Dongjin exclaimed, "Hold on, not so fast. Did you forget something?" But Minho retorted, "What did you do to her?" He calmly tells him, "Relax, he's just unconscious." Minho then asks, "And who is this guy? Why do you keep dragging innocent people into this?" Dongjin replies, "Just a homeless guy. I'm giving you a choice here. If you don't want to kill your sister, then kill him. Again, this is just a simple experiment. All you have to do is kill him and revive him. Then I'll kill him again to create 2 consecutive loops." Hearing this, Minho thought to himself that he had to remain calm. Without him, this guy was nothing. He should pretend to help him, and wait for an opportunity to strike. Then he asked, "You can kill people if you control them like that." Dongjin replied, "If I could, you'd be dead already. I've tried cutting off limbs, faking accidents, and controlling others to kill. I've tried everything, but no matter what I do, people keep dying and the loop restarts." Minho angrily asks, "Why do you want to kill people so badly?" Still don't understand why that time manipulator keeps getting in your way, Dongjin cursed at him. Fool, I will become humanity's judge, and nothing is more important to me than killing. Killing is necessary for my goal of eliminating humanity. Mien Hote wants to destroy. What is he even talking about, he continues. At first I thought the time manipulator was just stopping me from killing, but after seeing your power, I changed my mind. If neither killing nor resurrection is allowed, isn't the time manipulator the reason and purpose for keeping the world in balance? Who do you think it is? Haven't you figured it out yet? Outside the hospital, it was past midnight, and the rain was coming down harder and harder. A cold voice echoed. Who do you think it is? Haven't you figured it out yet? Suddenly, thunder cracked outside, illuminating Dongjin's icy face, as well as the room where Minho-Ho's sister and the puppet were sitting. Minho, utterly shocked, exclaimed, "No way, you mean it's not human?" Dongjin chuckled. Bingo, it's too powerful to be called human. The only logical reason is that it transcends even that. We can narrow it down to 3 possibilities for why it keeps obstructing us. First, there's a specific reason to prevent the use of superpowers. Second, killing and resurrection are forbidden for the sake of order and balance in the world. Just then, a knife pinned the centipede crawling on the wall. As it writhed in pain, Dongjin continued. Third, if the first 2 happen, it will lead to a terrible disaster, and I don't know if you, me, or someone else will be the cause. But the centipede continued to crawl with only half its body. He vowed that whatever the reason, he would see that bastard with his own eyes. I'll make it pay for what it's done. Hearing this, Minho fell into thoughtful silence. He may be right, but how can he fight a transcendent being that can control time? The centipede's remaining half fell the instant the knife left the wall. Dongjin retrieved his knife, asking, "Got it, now choose your sister or the homeless guy." Minho retorts, "Do you even need to ask?" Then without hesitation he points to the puppet standing before him. Dongjin asked, "So you choose the stranger after all? What weapon do you want, a wooden stick or a knife?" Minho quickly grabbed the wooden stick and raised it ready to attack the puppet, as Dongjin sternly warned, "And no funny business unless you want to see your sister hurt." Minho gritted his teeth trying to formulate a plan. Damn it, what should he do? Should he save Minyoung first? His hands began to tremble, but just then a voice echoed. "Minho." Minyoung sat up asking dazedly, "Where am I?" Dongjin glanced over and greeted her. The girl followed the voice and her face went pale in an instant. She cried out his name, Minho. Seeing Minwei so panicked, Minho shouted anxiously, "Minwei." Seeing him reach for his sister, he rushed over yelling, "Don't touch her," but something was off. Minho seemed lost for a moment. Confused, he exclaimed, "Huh, the Minyoung loop, wait a minute. What was that loop just now? Could it be you?" But Dongjin cuts him off. "Don't worry, I won't kill him. The loop happened because I killed you. Next time you get closer, I'll kill it," Minho thought, biting his lip. "Damn it, I have no choice. I have to fight it," Minyoung tells him in a panic. "Minho, I'm so scared." He gently reassured her, "Close your eyes and cover your ears. I'll explain everything later." Obeying him, she immediately covered her ears, crying as she spoke. "Why am I scaring you?" He responded, "You trust me, right? Just a little longer." The girl said fearfully, "I want to go home." Minho then told Dongjin, "I choose the knife. I think it's easier to kill with one stab than to hit many times with a stick." Dongjin coldly replied, "Whatever." The moment Minho gripped the knife, he sighed, staring at the figure before him, knowing he had one chance. He would do as he practiced, count to 3 and begin. 1, 2, 3. Take this. But then he activated his ability, and the knife shot towards Dongjin like an arrow. Seeing the knife flying towards him, he laughed in anger, a smile full of contempt. "Idiot." He quickly redirects the knife. The knife quickly pierces the ceiling and Dongjin scoffs, "You really think you can take me down with that?" But before he could finish, the puppet flew toward him. Dongjin clicked his tongue and swatted it away. The puppet immediately crashed into Minyoung, who was sitting nearby, covering her ears, and she screamed in terror. But Minho had vanished from Dongjin's sight. He quickly rose from his seat. Seeing his chance, Minho rushed from behind, aiming a chop at Dongjin's neck. Dongjin laughed, asking, "What do you think you're doing, grabbing me from behind? Let go before I get angry." Minho retorts, "You killed my mother and kidnapped my sister. I won't help you, even if it costs me my life." No sooner said than done, he used his power, touching Dongjin. The lightning on his hand immediately caused Dongjin excruciating pain. He struggled and screamed while Minyoung covered her ears on the ground, screaming in terror. Minho was using all his strength to hold Dongjin back. Though restrained, Dongjin gritted his teeth, thinking, "This hurts like hell. Like I'm stuck to a magnet, unable to move." The other frowned, wondering, shouldn't he be unconscious by now? Why is it still conscious? Dongjin wondered. Damn it, I can't. I have to break free. And then he immediately gains momentum, lunging forward. Then Dongjin and Minho both jumped through the window, sending shards of glass flying. Minho then slightly opened his eyes to look at him, frowning, as he thought the shockwave had no effect on him. So next, Minho stretched out his hand and used his power to push Dongjin forward. After taking the surprise attack, Dongjin was slammed into the stone wall, and now lies motionless amidst the shattered glass. He seizes this golden opportunity, raising his fist and lunging towards the unconscious Dongjin. But suddenly, Dongjin's eyes snap open, staring directly at Minho. Seeing this, Minho looks surprised, but doesn't stop as a loud crash echoes through the space. Glass shards fly everywhere, and blood trickles from Minho's mouth. After taking Dongjin's punch, he was sent flying backwards. A smug smile crept across Dongjin's face as he offered his assessment. You planned this well. Not bad, I'll admit. Minho, his arms mangled, glared with resentment, struggling to move his deformed limbs, his whole body trembling as he scowled and shouted. Seeing the scene unfold, he smirked, finding it all quite amusing. Just then, a wooden stick came crashing down on Dongjin's head from behind, wielded by none other than Min Young. He immediately turned around, his anger rising. You damn outsider. Minho, seeing Min Yang, broke out in a cold sweat, anxiously calling out to her. Suddenly, Dongjin grits his teeth and slaps the girl across the face as her brother screams at the sight of her on the ground. Minho and Min Yang screamed, "How dare you!" As the knife dislodged from the ceiling, he frantically warned her. No, Minwai Hang, run. The knife has left the ceiling and is falling straight down. Seeing this, Mianho yelled out in shock, "Hey, stop it." Mianho trembled on the ground in fear as the sharp blade fell towards Min Young while he smirked, ready to savor his sister's demise, the price for defying him. At that moment, the sharp blade hurtled straight down towards the girl, and Minho, witnessing this, screamed out in horror. But suddenly, a massive power erupted from Minho's hand, and he immediately swung his arm back. Then he thrust his hand forward, shouting as he unleashed a powerful blast of energy towards Dongjin. Dongjin turned back in surprise as the attack neared, and Minho's power lifted him into the air. From below, Min Young watched with a look of shock and fear, while Dongjin, overwhelmed by the energy, gritted his teeth and questioned what was happening. What is this? Minho landed and moved forward, his body enveloped in a powerful aura as he maintained his grip. Sweating, she stared at the scene, hesitating. Minho. Dongjin suppressed glares and grits his teeth. Bastard. Suddenly, someone was thrown toward Minho from the side. Sensing the danger, he immediately turned his gaze. Minho swiftly blocks the figure with his free hand, leaving Dongjin stunned, wondering what he's stopped. His eyes began to close, and he lost consciousness, unable to continue his train of thought. It can't be. Meanwhile, Minho frowned, his voice cold and low. Get out of here. Then a loud crash echoed as Dongjin's body was hurled forward. Instantly, Dongjin's body slammed and skidded across the floor, the impact knocking him unconscious. As Minho catches his breath, he stares at his hand in disbelief, wondering, did I win? What is this? Since when could I? Suddenly, Min Young's voice cuts through the air, calling out to Minho. Startled by this, Minho looked up as Min Young anxiously questioned Han. Are you okay? The little girl looked up, her face on the verge of tears. Seeing this, Minho embraces Min Yang and calls out his own name. Minho. Min Young, terrified, bursts into tears as the scene shifts to a room filled with cats. The conversation of two people echoes. It has begun, and this time I'll take matters into my own hands. The plan, just a honey trap. At the same time, we see Ha-yoon sitting in a chair as the other person's worried voice continues. An accident. What kind of accident? The other person replies calmly. That, just a little trouble, but they won't be waking up. I'll take care of it later. The white cat nuzzles her leg as the other two continue telling her to stop complaining. Okay, I get it. Hello, I'm losing you. Before Ha-yoon sitting in her chair was a scene of pouring rain as the voice continued. They've been upgraded a little, just a bit. At that moment, a smile crept across her face as the voice continued. It should have been over by now. Then we see Dongjin lying on the ground in the pouring rain, while in the corner, Sumin is pinned against the wall. Then he looked at her and smirked arrogantly, saying, Be honest, you came here because you missed me, didn't you? How sweet. So are we back together? Hearing this, Yujin coldly threatened, Are you kidding me? Want to see the bruises you left? Let's end this here. Before I tell the whole class you hit me. Hearing this, Sungmin's anger flared and he swung his fist. Again, you're forcing my hand. I'm hitting you because you're driving me crazy. The girl glanced at his hand and threatened, Just try it. I won't let you get away with it. Sungmin sneers, his voice dripping with mockery. Ooh, I'm so scared. What are you going to do? Suddenly, a loud sound echoed through the silence, followed by Yujin clutching her stomach and groaning as he roared in anger. Who do you think you're threatening, you little brat? At the same time, Sungmin grabs Yujin's hair, throws her to the ground and yells, You think I'll let you get away with this? Sungmin scowls, then shouts, You'll never escape me, you hear? Yujin says nothing, simply pulling her hood over her head. Next, the girl zipped up her jacket and Sungmin glared at her, clearly annoyed by her trembling. Hey, are you crying? When he got no response, he reached out to touch her shoulder and called out again. At that moment, Yujin, her face hidden by a hood, glanced back at Sungmin, noticing the girl's eyes burning with murderous intent as she stared him down, causing him to break out in a cold sweat. Suddenly, the space around Sungmin was enveloped in an eerie purple light, and as he looked up, drenched in sweat, he thought to himself, What's going on? I can't breathe. I can't take it anymore. I feel like I'm about to die. My eyes are rolling back. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Suddenly, he burst into tears and screams, his cries echoing through the stairwell, as Yujin watched him choke himself, writhing in agony. Then she quietly demanded, Swear, you'll stay away from me. Still writhing on the ground, Sungmin screamed in terror. Okay, I swear, please don't kill me, please. Tears streaming down his face, he begged, Please, I'm going to die. Suddenly, Yujin's pupils contracted, and the energy surged even more powerfully, causing Sungmin to tremble in agony before finally succumbing. Yujin then removed her hat, revealing a face slick with sweat before collapsing to the ground, exhausted, admitting she wasn't used to the energy waves. At that moment, a mysterious figure appeared, saying, "It's still alive. Is this enough? Why not just finish it off?" Hearing this, Yuan immediately retorted, "Is that how an admin should talk? Besides, you know I can't use my powers to hurt people, right?" And then brushing her hair back, she says nervously, "I think that's enough. Let's not meet again." Cut to a deserted building where Minho and Min Yang emerge together when she hesitantly says, "I thought he was your friend." He quietly apologized, "I'm sorry this happened to you." Min Yang then cautiously inquired, "Minho, what was that all about? What did you do to him? Is that some kind of special ability?" Minho replies gravely, "It's a long story, I'll tell you later." She suggested they go home before he woke up, and the girl obediently agreed. Yes. At the same time, Minho looked up wondering if leaving him like that was okay. But then he thought, no, he's gone too far. And the rain still hadn't stopped. With a cold look, Minho vowed to never be pushed around again. Soon after, the rain stopped and the sky began to clear. Dongjin then woke up and managed to stand barely containing his rage as he cursed inwardly, "Kang Minho, you son of a bitch." Next, Dongjin immediately dashes off with great force, gazing down at the city from above. Dongjin glared angrily, thinking, "Time loop my ass, you're all dead." He seemed to have lost control, cursing endlessly in his mind. "I'll take care of everything time loop or whatever, I don't care anymore. Let's see who wins in every lifetime." The scene shifts to a blue bus traveling along a busy route, its passengers jostled by the ride. A girl noticed a pregnant woman standing and offered her seat. The pregnant woman hesitated. "Thank you, you're very kind." At that moment, the driver was startled by what he saw. Dongjin was standing directly in front of the speeding vehicle, and the driver swerved to avoid hitting him. The sudden maneuver terrified the passengers, who screamed in shock, but thankfully no one was seriously hurt. The driver grabbed his forehead, glaring and shouting, "What's wrong with you?" Dongjin stood there, dried blood on his forehead, frowning unhappily. Suddenly, an unseen force lifts the entire bus into the air, sending its passengers tumbling and screaming in terror. Meanwhile, the blue bus continued to rise higher and higher above the endless stream of traffic below. Horns blared as Dongjin coldly raised his hand, sending all the vehicles flying into the air. Witnessing this scene, passers-by filmed with their phones, wondering in astonishment, "Look, what is that? Are they advertising a new car? Turn back, hurry." But he doesn't seem to stop, glancing over and extending his other hand towards them, lifting everyone off the ground. Next, they were all lifted high into the air by that invisible force, as Dongjin glared and roared in his mind, "He can deal with me faster than stop me, because I won't stop." In the air, vehicles and people alike are suspended. Most people suspended in the air were terrified and shocked, sweating profusely. Suddenly, he swung his hand down, and the vehicles and people plummeted to the ground. The sounds of vehicles crashing down filled the air, followed by the screams of falling people. Blood splattered everywhere while Dongjin remained unfazed. His face showed no remorse as he witnessed the destruction he had caused, when suddenly a loud sound echoed through the space. Dongjin's face begins to fade as a car crashes into a nearby building. Nearby, another vehicle and a girl are flung aside by an unseen force, sweat pouring down his face as he gasps for breath. Then a loud car horn blares. Below, people screamed and scattered as the vehicles plummeted, crashing in a cacophony of destruction. Dongjin, having used his power, frowned and gasped for air. He then wiped the blood flowing from his nose, as the sound of car horns amplified the chaos. Cut to Dongjin, who has quickly teleported to another location, his ragged breathing echoing in the air. At the same time, drops of red blood fell to the ground as he gasped for breath, trembling and muttering to himself, "Damn it, I'm exhausted, this isn't good. No, I can't stop, I have to keep going until he appears." At that moment, two figures appeared, observing Dongjin from afar, as Hawk glanced at him, wondering. He's finally stopped. "How many times has that been?" The mysterious figure with the umbrella calmly replies, "The 33rd loop." He seems a little confused by this. Doesn't he realize he's only hurting himself? At that moment, two figures approached. Yujin looks at them and speaks up, "Hey guys." He turns around smiling. "Hey there. I thought you'd be here sooner." "No, I had some business to take care of." Hook was immediately curious. "You mean your boyfriend?" the masked figure suddenly questioned. "Why would you bring that up?" Hook nervously sweats and forces a smile. Should I not have said that Yujin, standing nearby, has also turned pale? Next, she wondered if the time loop was happening again, to which he quickly responded, "But it's paused for now. Why isn't the higher-up recruiting him?" "I feel bad for him," Hoexi added. "I heard another universe was destroyed when they recruited without proper precautions." A voice echoed. "So it's not time yet." Suddenly, the mysterious figure with the umbrella points forward and shouts in surprise, "No, it's the tide of spatial invasion." Before the four of them, a red space began to materialize, and Hawk, removing his coat, declared, "I must act now and take him down before he's exposed to the intruder." Yujin, hearing this, responded sternly, "Understood." The girl then zipped up her jacket, obscuring her face as a heartbeat, and Yujin's breath echoed around them. Within her cloak, the girl's eyes narrowed with discomfort as a dark energy began to emanate from the seams. Meanwhile, Dongjin collapses to the ground, fighting back against the power. As he cries out, sweating eyes wide, gritting his teeth, he wonders what this pressure is. Is it him? Dongjin continues to scream in agony. Yujane trembles with fear, wondering what to do. He's resisting. Those behind her shouted words of encouragement. You can do it, keep going. Meanwhile, the girl continued to struggle with all her might. Seeing the power growing, he frowned and gritted his teeth, thinking, damn it, it's a mental attack I have to endure. But then Dongjin collapses. Seeing this, Hook urges, he's down, let's go, hurry. The sky above was turning a deep blue, and Dongjin, startled, slowly opened his eyes. He then stepped forward, thinking to himself, when did I stop? I don't remember moving my hands and destroying everything, and nothing changed. Dongjin squinted, thinking to himself that this must be his limit. How pathetic. He lifted his foot slightly, wondering what was wrong with his leg. When did I get hurt? Was it during the fight with him? Then Dongjin frowned and gritted his teeth as the scene shifts to a morning rooftop brawl at school, involving Kang Minho. At that moment, someone approached and spoke up. Is pushing Huncheon off the roof what you call fun? Then that person sternly questions. Don't you think you're going too far? What if he had died? Dongjin simply responds with a cold stare. With a disappointed look, Jiangnan hesitantly says, I thought you at least valued human life. Hearing this, he couldn't help but burst into gleeful laughter. The laughter only intensified, contrasting with the man's growing displeasure before Dongjin spoke. You've got me all wrong. Don't waste my time. Get out. He looked up, his eyes sharp and cold, and threatened in a low voice. Unless you want to die. Hearing this, Jiangnan frowned, gritted his teeth in anger, but said nothing more. Then he shouted uncomfortably, fine, my mistake for thinking we were friends. With that, Jiangnan turned and left, without looking back as Ha-Yun wondered from afar. They quarreled. How unfortunate. Why didn't you tell him you didn't do it? Then with a smirk, she confidently declared, and now it's my turn. Ha-Yun then approached Dongjin and sat down beside him. Then gently brushing her hair back and glancing sideways, she softly says, Dongjin, do you remember me? I just transferred here 2 days ago. Then she introduced herself. I'm Song Ha-Yun, but you ignored her and walked away. Seeing this, Ha-Yun warned, you'll regret it if you just leave in silence. Look, I've discovered your little secret. See this? I took it myself, and there's more. Then she pointed to a video on the screen and smiled slightly. This and this want to see more. I even have video. Suddenly, Ha-Yun's phone was flung from her hand by an unseen force, smashing against the nearby wall with a loud crack. Ha-Yun was stunned by the sight, while Dongjin simply glanced over. Ha-Yun then sat down, but he remained standing. Ha-Yun then broke the silence, saying she was glad she backed it up online. She then laughs triumphantly, declaring that it will automatically be uploaded to Meetup as an ebook guaranteeing widespread distribution. How do you feel about the whole world knowing who you are? Suddenly, Dongjin reaches out to Ha-Yun and unleashes his power. His other crutch clatters to the ground, and Dongjin without support loses his balance and falls backward. Ha-Yun quickly steadies him, warning, be careful. Then she looks up at Han, asking, are you okay? But instead of answering, he shoves her to the ground, leaving her confused and asking, why would you push me like that? Ha-Yun brushed herself off, remarking, that hurt. Next, she picked up the weight and offered it to Dongjin, but then Ha-Yun waved her other hand and exclaimed excitedly, but what do you need weights for? You have superpowers. If it were me, I'd just fly around. Seeing this, Veo angrily shouts, shut up, delete those files now or I'll take care of you. Dongjin was met with Ha-Yun's indifferent expression. At the same time, Ha-Yun calmly warns him to go ahead and try something, but he'll definitely regret it, advising him to think carefully. He snatched the crutch and clicked his tongue in annoyance, questioning, what do you want from me? Ha-Yun looked up at Dongjin, a playful smile on her face, followed by a scene of the two soaring through the sky. With a delighted expression, she spread her arms and exclaimed, this is amazing. Then Ha-Yun excitedly said, look, the cars are so tiny. I can see my entire apartment building, she exclaims in amazement. So this is what it feels like to fly, it's amazing. Ha-Yun, still thrilled, suggested, can you fly higher? Let's go higher. Sure, let's go higher. Higher, higher. In contrast to Ha-Yun, Dongjin looked incredibly bored, but he still complied, soaring straight into the sky. Ha-Yun laughed with excitement as she experienced this feeling while he maintained his stoic expression. Having brought Ha-Yun high enough to see the entire city below, she gazes in amazement, excitedly making a request. I'm on cloud 9, Dongjin. I want to try skydiving. Let me fall, then catch me. Okay, hurry, hurry. Without hesitation, he released Ha-Yun, who plummeted from the sky with an expression of pure exhilaration, falling faster and faster through the clouds. She was now falling rapidly towards the city, and Ha-Yun turned back, demanding, Dongjin, that's enough, catch me now. But Dongjin was nowhere to be seen, and Ha-Yun screamed in terror. Where did you go? Oh my god. Ha-Yun plummeted from the sky, hurtling towards the ground, but Dongjin appeared just in time, catching her and soaring upwards. He glanced at her terrified face, thinking to himself she's passed out. Dongjin's face suddenly turned pensive. Perhaps it was because he saw the tears streaming from Ha-Yun's eyes. Dongjin rolled his eyes, annoyed. Annoying, I don't have time for this. Then he quickly dashes away, still carrying her. Changing scenes, they've landed in front of a building's billboard. Ha-Yun remains unconscious, and Dongjin sits silently, a murderous look on his face. Then Dongjin recalled his battle with Mino, starting with the immense power in his hands. Second, Minho launched a frontal assault. Third, he was subdued by Minho's energy. Fourth, Minho's expression and the energy flowing around him. The more Dongjin thought about it, the more frustrated he became, and his own energy surged uncontrollably. Unable to control it, he immediately explodes, shattering the billboard above, as shards of glass rain down. Hearing the noise, Ha-yoon startles awake, wondering what's happening. What's going on, Ha-yoon wondered, but Dongjin, ignoring her, immediately demanded in a low voice. I did what you said, now delete the picture. Suddenly, she covers her face in fear. You're awful. Do you know how scared I was? I thought I was a goner there. Ha-yoon continued, nearly dying on her birthday. It was already hard enough going through it alone. My parents are abroad and I don't have any close friends here. At that moment, a powerful energy emanated from his hand. And then Dongjin glared at Ha-yoon, shouting in her face. Shut up. So what? Suddenly she threw herself into his arms, pitifully asking Dongjin, what am I supposed to do? Dongjin was stunned by this sudden action while Ha-yoon continued her lament. They abandoned me here. How could anyone value work over their own child? How dare they call themselves parents? She continued hesitantly. I hate that I still remember my mother. And his face remained expressionless. With a pitiful look, Ha-yoon hesitantly says they should at least come home for her birthday. Dongjin's hand trembles slightly, then gently touches her back as if to comfort her. Seeing this, Ha-yoon couldn't help but smile as she placed a candle on a small cake. As she struck a match, she wondered why it wouldn't light, and seeing Dongjin's lack of reaction, she looked up annoyed, asking if she had to light her own birthday candles. Come here and sit down quickly. He turns his face as cold as ice. Then Dongjin frowned and demanded hurry up and eat. I bought you the cake, so remember to delete all the files as promised. She frowned, unconcerned by his words. Don't interrupt me, I have to make a wish. Then Ha-yoon solemnly stated her wish. Lord, please make Dongjin value human life to stop her, and to become a good person who uses her power to help others. He frowned slightly at her words. At that moment, something yanked the triangular cake from Ha-yoon's hand, startling her. Next, she watched the cake fall and cried out in dismay. No, my cake. Han reached too far and nearly fell from the great height, but Dongjin swiftly extended his hand and used his power to pull her back. Ha-yoon suspended in midair glances at him, sweating and stammering, I'm okay. Thanks, Dongjin. Dongjin then throws her to the ground, gritting his teeth in annoyance. How annoying. We cut to another location where things are neatly piled in stacks. Minho stares at his hand, a frown creasing his brow as he wonders, what is this? This power. Then his pupils glowed and his hair floated upwards. Minho Hawk's power surges from his hands, and he unleashes a powerful blast of energy, swiftly lifting the wooden planks. He grimaces, gritting his teeth as if straining to his limit. And then he crushes the solid object before him as if it were soft plastic. Minho then drops the object to the ground, the loud crash echoing through the silent space, and stares at his palm. Then Minho narrowed his eyes, thinking to himself that this hidden power might have awakened when he saved Minyon. He withdrew his energy, wondering if he'd always had this kind of power within him. I haven't even trained yet, I suddenly have this power. All I did was knock someone unconscious. So what now? And Minho stood there, head bowed, lost in thought. Could it be Dongjin's influence? I feel stronger every time I see him. Why? Suddenly his eyes widened as he made a startling guess. Could someone be transferring their power to me? Maybe it's the time manipulator. Mienho raises his hands, wondering if these higher beings are sharing their power, and if they want him to stop Dongjin. He clenches his fist, declaring, yes, I can feel someone's will within this power. It's telling me to save people from Dongjin. Meanwhile, a mysterious figure in a golden cloak overheard this and chuckled as Ha-yoon, hair blowing in the wind, excitedly declared, this puppet is fun to listen to, talking about free will. Indeed, you have been chosen. Ha-yoon and Dongjin stand together on the city wall. She looked up at him and said, thank you for saving me earlier. Ha-yoon revealed her true feelings. You're not who I thought you were. I assumed you were a bad person because you bullied others at school. Dongjin glances at her, then continues, but you're actually kind. How did you get your powers? Dongjin glances forward, lost in thought. As a child, I had an accident in the mountains. Don't ask me anything more. Ha-yoon leans back and asks, have you ever used your powers for good? Silence is her only reply. She nods, probably not, huh? Then turns to look up at him. Are you seeing anyone? Dongjin doesn't answer and she giggles. You don't do you. Dongjin coldly looks down, telling her to stop talking and delete the file. She playfully kicks her feet and says, actually, I lied about the backup. Dongjin is a little surprised. What? Ha-yoon nods in explanation. It's on my computer. She then suggests he come to her place tomorrow to delete it himself, saying it would be better that way. Dongjin's expression remains unchanged. Now I have to go to your house. Are you kidding me? Ha-yoon comes up with a bunch of reasons. You broke my phone. I almost had to sell myself to survive. So we're even, right? Don't you think that's fair? With that, she gets up. It's the weekend. Come hang out. I'll cook. Let's have dinner together, okay? However, Dongjin coldly brushed her off. Ha-yoon's voice echoed in his ears. Hey, come tomorrow, okay? Remember, in a hidden corner, his face contorted as he bit his lip. I can't take it anymore. Once the file is deleted, I'll take care of it immediately. Ha-yoon watched him disappear, a knowing smile and a promise on her lips. See you tomorrow, Kim Dong-rin. Someone appeared behind Ha-yoon, saying that in the end, the daughter was the key. The other person continued, saying that his going home wasn't part of the plan. Without turning around, she replied in a monotone, emotionless voice. Everything is ready. It'll be over tomorrow, so don't worry, it's sure to succeed this time. The other person asks if it isn't a little too soon. The other person accepts Ha-yoon's words and will soon know. In the small room, Min-young lies curled up on the bed. I'm okay now. The girl seemed a little frightened. You have so many abilities I didn't know about. Were you hiding them from me all this time? Minho replied from the other end of the line. Yes, I'm sorry. She pressed further. Can you heal Mom's legs? When Minho said it probably wasn't possible, Min-yang was devastated. Then why didn't you save Dad? A hint of sadness flickered in his eyes. I was so young then and knew nothing of his abilities. Min-yang's voice was faint on the other end of the line, and suddenly he sat bolt upright. Minho, the girl asked hesitantly. Can you help my friend? She broke up with her boyfriend because he was abusive, but he keeps harassing her. He even came by and hit her today. Mienho was furious when he heard this. What a jerk, already resorting to violence in middle school, unbelievable. Min-young makes a request. Can you scare him a little? He asks, a bit perplexed. The next day at the apartment building, the door suddenly swung open, revealing Dongjin's scowling face as Ha-yoon rushed out with her apron asking if he had arrived. Why didn't you just knock? Come on in, I made you toast. It's my first time, so be nice. He sighs, disinterested. I'll leave once I delete the file. The door closes, and Han's voice echoes, why are you in such a hurry? Wait a minute. As he stepped inside, several cats meowed and approached him. What is this? Dongjin asked, tilting his head. Hey, where's the computer? He scanned the room, thinking to himself that he didn't see anything. Ha-yoon seemed unconcerned, handing him the pastry she had just made. Here you go, take it. Dongjin obediently accepts as she says, I'll pour you some milk, wait a sec. Dongjin persists, asking where the computer is. She answered as if it were nothing. A computer. We don't have one at home. His eyes flashed with murderous intent. What she answers as if it's nothing. I called you here just to talk. There's really no backup. Everything's on the phone. Holding the milk, Ha-yoon chuckled. Sorry for lying, but I have something important to say, so let's talk while we eat. Here's your milk. Immediately after, a plate of cake is thrown against the wall. Ha-yoon was also shoved against the wall. She cried out in pain. Wait, listen to me. You're making a mistake. Dongjin replied coldly. I don't care. I won't let you manipulate me anymore. Get lost. Her body trembled in waves before collapsing to the floor. Dongjin approached Han's body, suddenly sensing something. A suffocating pressure filled the air, and he wondered what was happening. She's definitely dead. But why isn't the time loop happening? Dongjin stared at Ha-yoon's motionless body on the ground, unresponsive, yet something troubled him. She was definitely dead, so why hadn't the time loop reset? To be sure, he checked her pulse only to fall further into shock. Dongjin shook Ha-yoon violently, saying, Hey, wake up. Panic began to set in. What are you? Why hasn't time reversed? But only silence answered him. Dongjin's pupils shrank, and he cursed under his breath as everything around him seemed to crumble. No way are you a time manipulator, but they're so easy to come by. Damn it, what the hell is going on? Kang Minho might be able to fix this. Suddenly, a white cat rubbed against his leg, its mismatched eyes meowing softly. Dongjin glared at her, thinking annoying. He quickly flipped Ha-yoon over, wake up, then began chest compressions, trying to give her artificial respiration. Dongjin screamed with all his might. Wake up, tell me what's going on. But the only response was a limp body, and Dongjin felt like he'd hit rock bottom. Wake up. His ragged breaths filled the silence as Dongjin's eyes snapped open in shock, and he slammed his fist against the ground, screaming in despair. Damn it. Soon the room fell into an eerie silence. Dongjin berates himself for acting too soon. What has he done? Is she a time manipulator or not even human? Damn it, he knows nothing. His eyes fell on the corpse as he wondered what to do with it when the door opened and two figures entered. They are Ha-yoon's other clones. Dongjin instinctively glances towards the door. Ha-yoon put her hands in her pockets, her voice laced with annoyance. I knew this would happen. Ha-yoon pulled her hat down, saying it was too early for this. Now look what you've done. We'll be called before the council again. As she speaks, another person emerges from the room, telling her to take responsibility and report. Ha-yoon smiles reassuringly. Don't worry, this is a major success. Dongjin couldn't hide his shock. What? Looking at that familiar face, he finally understood. It was Ha-yoon. Dongjin looks again at the cold body on the ground, descending further into shock. Then who is this person? What is going on? Ha-yoon questions her, asking if she calls this a success. With a confident look, she replies, Nothing has changed. Everything is proceeding as I predicted, Ha-yoon asked, confused. What are you saying? What does that even mean? Enough, just reset it. But this time she stopped that intention. No, he just tried to save someone and regretted killing someone for the first time. Have you ever seen that before? Ha-yoon thought it made sense. It was a first after all. He frowned, slightly surprised. He hadn't noticed until she mentioned it. That's right. Ha-yoon smiles knowingly. Whatever her intentions for him, he was the first. We finally found the inflection point of the curve. Dongjin, now fueled by rage, demands, Who are you people? To explain what's happening, all three Hyun clones turn to him, one approaching the girl face to face with Dongjin, then punching him in the face to wake him up. Dongjin grits his teeth demanding, "What the hell are you doing?" Hyun points an accusing finger. "You killed me." Dongjin reels in disbelief. It was her. She cursed at him bluntly. "That's right, you idiot, you lost some of your cool with that dumbfounded look." "What the hell?" Hyun frowned with a hint of sympathy. "You looked pretty desperate back there. Are you sad that I'm leaving you?" Dongjin coldly glared at her, a spark igniting in Hyun's eyes, as Dongjin was speechless with anger. "There's something I don't understand about you. Tell me what's going on." Just then the girl began to introduce herself. "Alright, first allow us to introduce ourselves." Hyun removed her mask, revealing her face as the person with glasses smiled and took them off. Dongjin is stunned by their identical appearance as they wave in unison. "Pleased to meet me, I'm Song Hyun." The space around Dongjin seemed to darken. He pauses for a moment, then a smile creeps across his face, his hand falling to his side as he thinks that at least he can be sure she's not human. A gust of wind whips around him, veins bulging in Dongjin's face. So the time manipulator has finally appeared. Suddenly the glass around them shattered, becoming weapons in Dongjin's hands, yet Hyun and the others didn't react. The girl suddenly speaks up, telling him to calm down, and not to cause a scene like before, saying she has something to discuss with him. Hyun frowned, explaining that she wasn't the time manipulator he was looking for, but Dongjin's mood only worsened. With a smile, Hyun spoke, "Don't be disappointed yet. He has an idea, and we have a very attractive offer," she added, hoping to inspire confidence. Kim Dongjin, the self-proclaimed nemesis of the time loop. Hyun reveals a confident smile. "We know how to escape this time loop." This revelation struck a nerve with Dongjin. "What, of course we're not saying this for nothing, we need your help." The girl smiles as if trying to soothe his anger, saying it's too early to reveal the details. "But we've decided you're the right person, and you've proven it yourself, though Dongjin still has his doubts." "Did I agree to this? I never helped you people." The girl stepped in to explain everything. "We've seen enough to confirm your potential. We have high expectations for you." "What if I say no?" He crossed his arms and tilted his head. "Then you'll never know, and you'll be trapped in that time loop forever. I don't like it. If you're trying to persuade me this way, forget it. I have no intention of helping you." The shards hang above them, and Hyun calmly demands they tell him how to stop it, or he'll finish them off. "Sorry, but we can't right now," Dongjin sneered. Then there's only one thing left to say. His pupils contracted a growl, escaping his throat. "Go meet your ancestors." Instantly, the shards of glass converged, hurtling towards Hyun in a straight line, piercing through him, and becoming coated in a thick liquid, all three clones collapsing. Dongjin coldly eyed them, stepping toward the pool of viscous liquid, thinking to himself that as he thought, dealing with them didn't send him back to the past. Dongjin roared in a fit of rage. "Come out here. God or man, I'll take your life. Come out here." The door opens again. Who is he yelling at? Dongjin frowned, his voice echoing as he spoke. It was Hyun's blue hair again, but this time their appearance was strange, causing Dongjin's eyes to widen before he turned away in embarrassment. Hyun smiles blankly as if programmed. "If it makes you feel better, you can kill us as many times as you like," he spoke up, reminding him. "We have spare copies." Seeing them all naked, Dongjin doesn't dare look back at what they are. The girl representing all three explains that the person he flew with in the sky, and those he dealt with, were all Songhan, and they are also Songhan. The door remains open, revealing all the clones inside the room. "We are separate individuals, yet we share the same memories." At school, someone fell from the rooftop right. Elsewhere, Hun Xian is sitting rolling a joint when he suddenly bursts out laughing. "Is that you? Why are you so late this year?" "Want to meet your ancestors." A light appeared in front of him, causing Hai Unun Cheon to frown, his body trembling. "What are you Chuma things?" Ha-Yun, the leader, tapped her foot against the floor. Back with Dongjin, Ha-Yun reveals, "That was us. I told them to wait at school while I looked for a house." Ha-Yun quickly added, "But it happened while I was hitting him." And she burst out laughing. "I didn't expect him to fall like that. He'll wake up soon like nothing happened." Ha-Yun approached and gently touched Dongjin's shoulder. "Dongjin, do you want to know who we are? Then please help us," she said, looking at him with trust. "You have nothing to lose. This is your chance to escape the time loop. One clear morning with blue skies." At the rooftop railing, he wonders, is the 600 million in damages really my fault? Han Run falls into a deep depression. The girl who confessed her feelings yesterday now turns her back on him, and Chief Par pressures him. He couldn't think of anything positive anymore. He was tired, exhausted. Should he just jump? He wouldn't go alone. The red light from the sky strikes Han Run. He nodded as if transformed. Suddenly an outline appeared around the entire building, instantly turning it into a box. Han Run's hair sways in the wind, his state completely changed, replaced by a twisted smile. "I will grant you what you desire to return to Dongjin. Ha-Yun is tempting him, so help us. You have nothing to lose here. This is your chance to escape the time loop." Dongjin asked suspiciously, "What do you want me to do?" The girl patted his back reassuringly. "Something you might even like, so look forward to it." Ha-Yun asked again to confirm. "So is that a yes?" Dongjin reluctantly nodded. "Okay, I get it. Put some clothes on, it's making me uncomfortable. The three of them clapped in unison, celebrating his wise decision. Dongjin had a thought, there's no point in dealing with them over and over. He'll have to wait and see what happens. He doesn't care as long as he can get rid of the time loop. Ha-yoon now dressed heads to the window, turning back to call, "Come here, Dongjin." Then pointing in a direction, she said, "Do you see anything over there?" He looked around, but there was nothing but buildings. Ha-yoon offers a box, telling him to put in these contacts, but Dongjin stubbornly refuses. No. The girl patiently coaxes him. "You have to wear them to see." "I still don't know what they are." But no, Ha-yoon knows how to dominate her prey. "Wait, are you scared to put them in?" She casually brushes Dongjin's hair back, revealing his forehead. "What are you doing?" Annoyed, she snapped. "Can't you even put in your own contacts?" "You idiot." Dongdai kept resisting. "I never had to use them. My eyes are fine." But Ha-yoon insisted on having her way. "Don't move. Look into my eyes and don't blink." After Dongjin put them on, everything changed. He blinked a few times, feeling a strange sensation. It was then that Ha-yoon made his request, "Look over there at the Hanzoon building. You see it now, don't you?" Ha-yoon looked at him expectantly, telling him there was someone he needed to take care of. Dongjin stares intently, then asks, "Is that what you want me to do? Take care of someone?" The girl gave a small hesitant reply. "Yes. Yeah, or something close to it. You'll find yourself in a rather peculiar situation, so try not to be too surprised." Inside the building is silent and someone is face down on the ground. The other employees kneel, raising their hands in a strange salute, while Han sits cross-legged arrogant. The people below trembled, pleading, "Please, Mr. Lai, have mercy. I'm pregnant. I just started yesterday. Can I go home?" He smirked, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "This is the problem with you humans. I've already told you." With a trembling hand, Han signaled 1 year, saying, "I was going to let you all go if you just sat still until I folded all 10 fingers. And of course, when you're on your deathbeds, you'll forget everything I told you." A bald man raised his hand obsequiously. "Calm down, Mr. Lai. I only have 1 finger left, and at least I haven't attacked you like the others. Right, what do you want? A promotion, a raise, stock options? I'll give you everything if you let me go, okay?" he said, sweating profusely. "That's right, what about my daughter?" Han Run frowned in displeasure. "I've never been bald." His last finger curled down. The bald man was terrified, realizing he had no chance, his teeth grinding as he trembled. "You dare insult my hair." He then collapsed to the ground. So 2 have now gone to meet their maker as a nearby girl cries out in alarm. "Honey." The coworker wondered, "Are you bald? Did you know about this?" Mina grabbed his hair and his wig fell off. She broke down in tears, saying he had deceived her. Hanrun clapped gleefully, roaring with laughter. It was better than a comedy. It was a great idea to choose the multiplier ability. Those below bowed slightly. "This is a nightmare. I never thought I'd be scouting chickens in a game." "Not me never," a young man shouted. "Mr. Lai, I can't end up as a roasted chicken like this." He ran and grabbed the man's leg. "I'm getting married this weekend, you know that." "Right, please spare me." Han sneers contemptuously. "You idiot, you still think I'm old Lai." A cold glint flashed in his bloodshot eyes. "I'll take care of all of you. Do you know why? Because you were born to be salt merchants." Now Dongjin and Ha-yoon approach a building shrouded in a hazy orange glow, unnoticed by anyone else. They both look up, observing the strange structure. Annoyed, Dongjin asks his father, "What is this?" Ha-yoon turns to him and calmly explains. "It's called an intrusion space, a time-space created without permission, solely for killing and destruction. Your job is to deal with the invaders using these incursions. Of all the supernatural ability users, we've discovered you're the strongest, so you should be able to defeat them easily." "What the hell are you people, and what are they? Gods, aliens, what?" Ha-yoon looked up, trying to compensate for her height, and replied, "I can't tell you that just yet. I'll tell you if you complete all the missions." Hearing this, Dongjin laughed in affirmation. "This is the only time I'll help you with a mission. If I succeed, tell me how to escape the time loop as promised." Ha-yoon silently extends her hand, sealing a promise that she intends to keep no matter what I think. "She ordered me to hold her hand to go inside," and Dongjin was surprised and frowned. "Why?" she chuckled to herself. "You need to hold my hand to get inside." Ha-yoon glances at a stranger, watching the woman leave. The girl was engrossed in her phone as she walked, unaware that the orange dimension was about to collide with her. She then walked away effortlessly, and Ha-yoon continued, "See, normally you just pass right through it. Inside is another dimension, a copy of reality. You can't enter without my help, and even I can't get in easily. You can only see it because you're wearing the contacts. You can't touch or enter it," Ha-yoon said, poking the dimension. Dongjin coldly refused to understand. "I don't understand what the hell is going on." As soon as he finished speaking, Ha-yoon boldly grabbed his hand and pulled him away. "You'll see soon enough." Dongjin unconsciously let her pull him into the dimension. He stared in disbelief as his body was pulled in piece by piece like a magic trick. Then even his feet disappeared. Once inside, the two moved quickly through the dimension, but Dongjin felt a growing unease. "What the hell?" Ha-yoon exclaimed, reminding him. "Don't let go. If you get lost in here, you won't be able to escape," even as he was being dragged away. Meanwhile, inside the building, bodies littered the floor, leaving only one terrified man offering his pinky. Han-jun cheerfully flashed a peace sign and asked, "Are you the last one?" The man trembled, his hands and voice shaking. "Please have mercy," he begged, but without listening, Han-jun unconsciously raised his head in defiance. "Ready, newlywed." The man then fled for his life, as Han chuckled and lowered a finger with glee. "I've never married for money." Immediately the man fell face first onto the floor with a painful thud. Han-run waves goodbye but suddenly senses something approaching and turns to look. The glass behind him shatters as if someone deliberately broke it, and Han-jun blankly stares in that direction. Just in time. "Pleased to meet you, administrators." Dong-jin helps Ha-yoon approach the ground. Her eyes widened in praise. "You've killed so many people, you wiped out an entire company, impressive." But contrary to expectations, Han-jun wasn't afraid, but rather delighted. "Thanks, are you going to reward us? You don't have the right to punish us anyway. How long are you going to keep us from having fun? What does it matter what we do in the playground?" Ha-yoon crossed her arms annoyed and tilted her head. "Do you know how busy you've made me? There's a limit to how much I can erase people's memories. I guess you haven't heard that the punishment rules have changed." Han chuckled and raised his hand to his mouth. "The punishment rules have changed. Is that administrator going to take action?" Ha-yoon confidently tells Dong-jin that he's not an administrator, just a man. Hearing this, Han-jun raised his hand, stifling a laugh. "A mere human dares to stand against me." Ha-yoon sternly warns his opponent to watch out. "He's pretty strong," he admits with a feigned nod. "Is that so? Fine, let's have some fun then." Without a word, Dong-jin took his stance, and Ha-yoon declared the intruder approved. An extreme power emanated from him, and Dong-jin's hair flowed in the wind. Han-jun suddenly felt uneasy, and broke out in a sweat. "A superhuman, are you one of humanity's heroes?" he sneered, holding up a hand. "I'll fight you with just one finger." Han chuckles, looking at his opponent. "Too bad I can't play with heroes. I'm out of fingers, they're all dead, you shouldn't have been late." Then clutching his stomach with laughter, he says, But don't be disappointed. I still have one finger left. I was saving it. But this is a special finger. Just by bending it, you'll die instantly." Han smugly commands, "Come here, human." But contrary to expectations, Dong-jin sidestepped, summoning the shards of glass to float in his hand. Han-run laughs, his finger pointed to the ground. "Psychokinesis, huh? Impressive." Dong-jin then points his hand at him, sending the glass flying. Han laughs maniacally. "I was never a hero." But Dong-jin's calm reaction, and the flying glass confused him, and Han-jun stared in a daze. What? The glass quickly pierced through his tiny fingers. Blood splatters everywhere like water, and Han instinctively stumbles back in pain. "That bastard intentionally targeted my fingers," but without a hint of fear, he loudly proclaimed, "So you're not what I thought. That's right, humans aren't worth helping, they're just toys we created." Han-run laughs maniacally, as blood drips from his finger. "Just to play around. This is my domain. No matter how strong you are, you can't defeat me here, understand? You pathetic psychic." With that, Han-jun's arrogance returns as he lowers his finger to the ground. Dong-jin glared silently at his opponent, whose finger trembled even more. Han-jun stared in disbelief, unable to understand why his power was gone. Growing anxious, he wiggled his fingers, searching for power, as Dong-jin silently raised 3 fingers towards Han-jun. He screamed in terror, "You little bastard, let me go." Snap, snap. Han-run stammered out orders in desperation, causing Ha-yoon to burst out laughing. Dong-jin yawned wearily and spoke, "This is boring." He quickly bent the man's fingers backward. Han-jun screamed in pain as his fingers contorted unnaturally. Slowly, his entire body floats into the air, and Han-jun looks down in astonishment, not understanding what's happening. Dong-jin lifted him higher, and Han-jun was terrified. With a snap of his fingers, Dong-jin slammed his opponent into the ceiling. Rocks clattered as Han trembled, terrified by this power. Suddenly, the stones froze in place, aimed at him, and then launched a swift, coordinated attack. Hearing the desperate screams, Dong-jin looked up to assess his opponent as blood dripped onto the floor. Hanun is severely injured and stuck to the ceiling. As he slowly falls to the ground, Dong-jin casually approaches. He sighed and spoke to Jong in a bored tone, "This is so boring." Dong-jin turns to his teammate and orders him to finish Ha-yoon off, who reacts in bewilderment. "We can't kill him. When we entered, we synchronized with the intrusion space, so we can't attack." Dong-jin sighs annoyed. Han-run laughs maniacally. "You're making a mistake siding with humans against the council. You should choose the right side. You lowlife." With that, Han raises another finger next to the injured one. "I never was one." Ha-yoon and Jong-jin turn to him in surprise. 2 fingers are offered, though one is broken, a ridiculous sight. She shouts a warning without thinking. "Careful." Han-jun grins wickedly, his eyes like a frog's. The villain. Dongdi quickly realizes Han-jun is aiming for him, yet he stands still in silence. He turned and glared at him as Han-jun's pained cries echoed out. He lay motionless on the ground, trembling all over as he looked up and screamed in agony. Before Dong-jin, Yu-jin in a red coat extends her hands in a strange manner, her face slightly turned to him despite being completely covered. Dong-jin wondered if there was another Esper one with the power to attack the mind, making him remember the past. Dong-jin glared full of hatred and asked, "Can I just kill that bastard?" Ha-yoon rushes in to stop him, saying, "No, Dong-jin, she's on our side. Focus on the intruder, please. She's running out of steam, so you need to help her." Dongjin coldly ignored the plea. Let go of me. Ha-Yun's cloak appeared out of nowhere. That was almost a disaster. Be more careful. She blushed and smiled, relieved that he had arrived. He crossed his arms behind his back and grumbled, Hey Dongjin, aren't you taking it a little too easy? If it weren't for her, you'd be dead. Ha-Yun Somi quickly soothes the situation. Don't get worked up, it's nothing. Suddenly Yujin trembled all over. Han grits his teeth in anger, lifting his head. Pathetic little humans. Ha-Yun Seo responded frankly, That's right, so we asked others for help and the council approved. Dongjin finish him. He heard this and muttered to himself, while Han desperately tried to deny it. Don't mess with me. Something's not right here. I've never heard of a human with superpowers. Those damn admins. The ground then slowly cracked and a boulder gradually emerged and was pulled up. Dongjin uses his inner energy to control the boulder, aiming it at Han Run, glaring coldly, and pointing at his enemy. The boulder hurtles towards the prone Han Run, giving him no chance to dodge, and then stops. He stares in disbelief and screams. No. The boulder swiftly crushes Han Run, leaving him no chance to react. From where he lay, his lifeblood flowed like a stream as the invaded space began to collapse. Rifts and glitches begin to appear in the dimensions as Ha-Yun Seomi looks up to observe. Now that the intruder is dead, time and space are collapsing. We have about half an hour to evacuate. If any invaders are missed, what happened here will be reflected in reality. Yujin then collapses to the ground, trembling and panting. Ha-Yun gently supports the girl with her cloak. We'll go on ahead. Your joining hasn't been confirmed yet, so introductions will have to wait. Let's go try to endure it. Ha-Yun Somi watched them leave and diffused the situation. Let them go. I'll introduce you some other time. Dongjin glanced around and spoke unconsciously. Hey Ha-Yun, is time not reversing because that guy isn't human like you? Her smile is almost the same. It's because time has temporarily stopped. Even if you kill someone here, the time loop won't happen. I mean, the space is invaded. It's like a hunting ground for you. Dongjin stared silently after hearing that. That evening at Minho's window, he stared down at the street as if contemplating something. Why is it so quiet? Did he give up? Maybe I didn't pay attention to the time loop. I can't let my guard down. A message appears on his phone from his sister. This is the person I told you about. Lot 83, Jun M. Park. Mienho stared in disbelief at Jun M. Park, who was obliviously playing video games in the car. He unconsciously asks about the task he assigned, and the driver coldly responds. It's in that box over there. Jun P. immediately turns to look around. Where is this? He picked it up, elated and overjoyed. The device emits electric sparks, making Jun P. even more excited. Excellent. Well done, and don't tell my father. The driver obeyed with a stern voice. Yes sir, but what do you intend to do with that? Jun P. giggled and looked away. Oh, it's Ha-Young. He rolled down the window and casually asked, Where are you headed? Inho with his cronies cheerfully calls out, Just coming from cram school. Too obvious. He unconsciously joked around. Does Dan want another beating? If you don't study hard, you'll end up a failure like me. As the idiot finished speaking, his friends burst into laughter while Dongjin grew even more suspicious after hearing Ha-Yun's words. A hunting ground? You mean I can only kill here? Is that how to end the time loop? Ha-Yun politely nodded. Exactly, you can kill as many as you like and we'll handle the intruders. Of course you can't attack civilians. You may not like this deal, but cooperation will be better for you. Only we can help you like this, don't you think? And the other clues we haven't shared, let's work together. Dongjin said, her eyes sparkling with joy. Dongjin sighs, looking exhausted as she buries her face in her hands. When will you finally tell me who you really are? Ha-Yun remained firm, refusing to answer, saying they couldn't reveal anything until he officially joined. He scratched his head in frustration. What's next? She gently walked away from Dongjin, stating that he had proven his abilities. Then Ha-Yun pressed the elevator button to go down, turning back to explain that it was time to meet the others with supernatural powers. Dongjin frowned, surprised, questioning if there were others with supernatural abilities besides her. Then they both entered the elevator in silence. Meanwhile, Ha-Yun explained, the number of people with supernatural abilities is increasing, and someone from our side will start investigating soon. But anyway, that's not our concern. There are 4 superpowered individuals I want to introduce you to. Dongjin pressed on, still annoyed. How many are there exactly? She calmly replied 50. According to what we know, he asked aghast. 50, Ha-Yun said nonchalantly and continued. They have something in common, they've all killed or nearly killed someone, and they're all stuck in a time loop, just like you. Dongjin's eyes widened in shock. What? Always, she looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief. Everyone except those unable to kill with their powers has experienced the loop. We don't know why. Just then the elevator arrived on the first floor, and the doors gently opened. Ha-Yun continued to look at her teammates, rambling on. Perhaps it's a tool to suppress the destructive instincts of those with superpowers. We're still trying to figure out who's behind all this. Dongjin was stunned for a moment after hearing that. I didn't expect so many. It's possible the time manipulator is one of them. Maybe I'll find the time user if I kill them all. With that thought, his face turned more sinister than ever. The question is, can I do it without being detected? I'll have to pretend to cooperate, then kill them off one by one. Yujin now, without her hood, strolled down a deserted path, her eyes scanning the surroundings as she heard the cries. "Who a stray cat?" The cries grew louder and stranger, making Yujin wonder, why does it sound so weird? Is it hurt? It sounds like the cries are coming from this way. The girl followed the sound into a dead end, where she found a cat tied to a piece of paper by all four paws, crying out in distress. Yuen instinctively rushes over, asking, "What happened to you?" It's okay, don't move, just wait a moment, I'm sorry. Hold still." Little did Yuen know someone was waiting behind her. Lost in frustration, she struggles with the restraints, suspecting someone did this on purpose. But who? Suddenly Yujin's eyes widen as she turns around. It's Junpei looking down with a sinister grin. Yujin stammers in fear. "Runp, is that you?" Seeing the electric prod, she screamed, "Hey, let go of him." But it was too late. Yujin screamed, then collapsed. The girl curled up from the electric shock in front of Jun Park, asking what he was doing. Clutching her body in pain, she curses him while Jun Park grimaces and retorts, "What did you make me eat that day? Damn it, I'm dead." "What the hell did you do?" Yujin weakly pulls up her hood. "My hoodie." But Junpei continued to shock him and give orders. "Answer me. Are you having fun?" It's funny to see his eyebrows twitch like that. Suddenly, Mienho appears from behind. His body trembled. He turned around, bewildered. "Just what the hell are you?" He didn't answer, but immediately ordered them to stop. But instead of the expected reaction, Jun Park shocks Minho Yu with electricity, and a trembling Yujin gets up and puts on his hood. "No, I have to help." Jun Park was stunned, frozen in place. Why isn't it working? Then Minho grabs his hand tightly. He channels internal energy, sending electricity coursing through Jun Park's body, causing him to scream in agony. "If you bother Yujin again, this won't be the end of it." He stammered out a terrified plea. "Yes. Okay, I get it." Minho releases him, and Junpei collapses to the ground, clutching his arm in agony. Yujin, still wary, watched him dazedly as Junpei suddenly scrambled up and fled from Minho. He didn't forget to turn back and threaten, "He'll kill you. Just you wait, you bastard." Minho watched him go silent, then turned to Han with concern. "Are you okay?" Yujin looked visibly annoyed. "Minho." At that moment, Minho immediately took off his mask and anxiously questioned Han. "Yuen, are you okay? Are you hurt?" She didn't answer, only uttering a few words. "Minho, it really is you." He anxiously asked if she could stand, and Yujin slowly got up, then sighed. "I'm okay. Please help the cat first." Mienho then quickly frees the cat, who immediately bolts away. Mienho rolls her eyes, annoyed. "That kid is the ex-boyfriend who keeps bothering me, isn't he?" Yuen happily takes off her hat and coat. "Did Minwai tell you?" He nods. "So you're not going to report him to the police?" She smiles brightly. "No need." Minho raises his voice, reminding her. "What do you mean by that? This is serious. You should tell your parents," but Yuen continues to refuse. "Minho, I'm Eugino, and I can handle things myself." He sighed heavily. "You haven't changed at all, have you?" She retorted loudly. "What do you mean by that?" Little did they know Jun Park was secretly filming them from afar. The two then walked home for a while, and Yujin turned to question him. "How did you know I was here?" Minho shrugs. "This is where I come when I want to be alone." She nods repeatedly. "I see, but where did you learn that?" Self-defense, Minho remained silent for a long moment. "Yeah, that's right, I learned it because I was the only man in the house." But Yujin doesn't believe me, and is even more suspicious. Clearly, it's a supernatural lightning ability. Is that why the anesthetic doesn't work on him? Meanwhile, Jump watches the two of them leaving together, his discomfort growing. He grits his teeth and frowns. How do they know each other? Damn it. Is that the reason she dumped me? Jump's face twisted in anger. "I'm going to kill him." Meanwhile, at a brightly lit bar, Kim Woo angrily shouts at the waiter. "Hey, where are the girls?" Dong Mi quickly chimed in. "Are they here yet?" He shot up as the knocking at the door grew more insistent. "Looks like they're here." But the man outside quickly ran in to report. "Boss, there are some bastards." Before he could finish, he was struck on the back of the head. It was Inho and his crew swaggering in. "Greetings." Kim Yu shouts in annoyance, asking who these bastards are. "Get them out of here." Chan Ho ignored him, grabbing a beer from the table. "It's been a while since I've had this." Kim Yu angrily shouts, ordering them to be dragged out immediately. Inho tilted his head, amused. "Are those dogs on the ground yours?" With everyone fast asleep, Kim Jun finally steps forward to speak. "Hey, you bastards. Do you know who we are? Who sent you?" But Inho's gang wasn't scared, throwing beer bottles past him, saying it was none of his business. "You sons of bitches." Dong Min stood up and pointed, looking contemptuous. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Take that off. Who are you guys?" Instantly, a beer bottle was hurled at his face, and Dong Min collapsed, hitting his head against the wall. Kim silently watched his comrade get slammed into the wall as Kim Yu swiftly drew his knife and charged forward. He raised his weapon and shouted, "You bastards," but Inho's gang easily dodged the blow without fear. Kim Yu glanced back wide-eyed as another thug raised a long metal pipe ready to strike. A loud crash sends Seo flying out of the room. Kim calmly states his terms. "What do you want?" "If it's money you want, I can give it to you." Inho calmly knelt down and picked up the knife. "We have more than enough money." "Then what do you want?" He stood before him, glaring down. "Nothing, we just need you to die quietly." Kim trembles as he hears this and stammers. "Spare me please," he begged, but he was executed on the spot without hesitation. Sizo splattered violently, and after the deed was done, the group scattered and fled. The three of them hid in a dimly lit park panting. Runyu took off his mask and anxiously asked, "Hey, are we safe?" In-ho smirked, "Politics only exist because we do the dirty work behind the scenes. You deadbeats will get your money tomorrow, so just lie low for now." Hearing that, Chaho happily looked up at the sky. "Great, I'm buying a new car." In-ho stares at the phone in his hand, then answers it. "What do you mean, yes?" The caller laughs loudly and makes a request. "I need a favor, guys." In-ho's voice is laced with annoyance. Causing trouble again, Junpei immediately protested, annoyed. "I just need you to take care of this guy, and I'll send you the pictures." Then Minho's photos were quickly sent to him. Chanho and Junyu realize it's the same jerk from before. Suddenly In-ho gives a dark, twisted smile. "You're done for two." "Yeah,